I might have overshot it. Okay, we are here. And this is Roger Belt with the HalfPastDead Paranormal Roundtable. And I will be your host along with...
This is Frank Lee. I'm going to be co-hosting here tonight. So thank everybody for joining in.
Yeah. Will Pritchard from Duck Creek Radio, Duck Creek Paranormal. Glad to be aboard.
Okay.
Let's see, we got... Yeah, things having a little bit of Skype issues there. We got Donald Davis on the show as well with us from Casper Paranormal.
He's having some malfunction there.
Right. I think the issue was I did my Skype voodoo dance before the show for me.
I've been doing one all day, so
I'm going to go ahead and apologize to Donald because I did not sacrifice a frozen chicken to the Skype gods today.
Okay.
No frozen chicken to the Skype god. Well, I ate some fried chicken for lunch. Does that count?
It's got to be worth something.
Got to be worth something. That's what I figured.
Okay, we are debuting for the HalfPastDead Paranormal Roundtable tonight. So and there's 4 of us, and we're gonna sit around the table, and we're just gonna talk about paranormal stuff and whatever pops up. And before it's over with, we may even laugh a little bit. But anyway, we did a test show last night, Frank and William and myself, that lasted 5 hours. But I mean, we had a lot of interesting things that we talked about, and paranormal. It is kind of like it's not a hobby for me. It's a passion for me, and I love investigating. I love helping people. It don't get much better than that, in my opinion. Frank, I'm sure you probably feel the same way, William and Donald and all y'all. Kind of give us a little bit of, where your passion comes from. And we'll just go around the table here, starting with Frank and William and Donald and kind of tell us why you have so much passion for what you do.
Well, with me, I've I had a near-death experience as a child, and that really started my curiosity about the paranormal, the unknown, mysteries. That's always been there. But as far back as I can remember, I've always been just fascinated with science, with history, with anything that I couldn't explain. I wanted to figure it out. I was the kid that drove my parents crazy because I took everything I got my hands on apart. And, I never outgrew that. I'm 36 years old and I'm still going through that. I just, about 2 hours before the show, I was giving my teenage daughter a physics illustration with a paper plate in the kitchen. I mean, that's just, the way it is. So, and the paranormal for me has always been a way to tie the science, the history together, and you have that element of the unknown, and you're seeing all of them working together, and it's they're layering and playing off of each other well. And not only that, but it's helping people. That's something that I've always enjoyed. And when you can go in, you see the look, the expression on people's faces when that relief they get when they find out that they don't have to be worried about what's in their house. You give them a natural explanation to their experiences, or you validate that what they have been experiencing is paranormal and that they're not going crazy. However it turns out, you're giving them a sense of relief, or so helping people is definitely a big thing for me too.
Right.
So, but I would say that's what it is for me.
And that's interesting, and it's good that when you can go in, somebody's house and put them at ease. Even if they do really have a problem, you can give them tools to work with to where they can at least not have to be as afraid. Kind of relax more with what's going on.
Absolutely. That it's for a lot of people, even though you're having to tell them that you can't come up with a natural explanation for what they're experiencing, that it truly does appear to be paranormal. And it's a sense of validation for them, because at that point they know, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not imagining this. I'm not being overly medicated. I'm not crazy. This is, this is really happening. And now these people have came in and they have validated that for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a good thing. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, I've never had someone get mad when they find out that they need a plumber or, to call pest control instead of it being a demon in the closet or something like that.
Right.
So
I think we lost, just to let you guys know, it looks like we lost Donald. I think his connection just finally went kaput.
Yeah, it looks like he dropped off.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I don't know. We've been having some really bad weather here today,
right.
So it might have zapped his lines.
We've had ice and snow and everything all night here last night, and most of the day.
Unfortunately, where he is in kind of a rural area, and his the utility companies out there don't exactly give that area priority.
Right. Unfortunately, that's sad. It is sad.
Right. So maybe we can get him back before it's over with.
Oh yeah, we'll get him back. I'm pretty sure. He'll be back up and running. So let me ask you, Frank, when you your paranormal research and everything like that is a passion. Was there a moment where you just kind of said, you know what, man, I'm going to go from this being a novice to just let's just go ahead and do it?
It's kind of funny how that happened. Really, it was completely unplanned. I'd never really thought of being an investigator, and this is when I was very young adult. I was 20 years old when I went on my first investigation. And now, when I was a teenager, I was studying all kinds of books. I was reading Lloyd Auerbach. I was reading Hans Holzer. I was reading Harry Price. Bill Roll, all of these, and I'd been reading them for, I started when I was about 15, I guess. So I've been studying for about 5 years before one of my first investigations. But at that time, there was no one in the area doing that sort of thing that you ever heard of, And of course, keep in mind this was, during the years ago, and so it wasn't like it is today, where there's a group, in every other city, it seems like. And I'm, I remember when I went on that first investigation and got to really see all of the things that, or got to put into action, hands-on, all of the things that I'd studied about for all of those years. Mm-hmm. It was exhilarating, to say the least. And
I'm sure it was, because you were seeing it, not just reading it, you were seeing it firsthand.
Right. It was. And it was instantly, that was all it took. From that moment on, I knew that was what I wanted to do. And I've been doing it ever since. So that was, that was 15 years ago, and, here I am today, and don't have any plan of stopping anytime soon.
Well, that's good. That's great. A man's passion, especially when it's something like that, to not only benefit other people, but to benefit, really, honestly, this field that we're in. It's I hate to say it's a beautiful thing, but I mean, it really is in a way, to be able to help somebody who is completely helpless in a way. Because, I mean, if you think about it, going through that circumstance, being in a haunting, whether it is grandma because she wants to make sure that her china doesn't get sold at the pawn shop, or whether it is an old person who just refuses to go to the light. That family is going through a really rough time at that particular stage, and they need your help. And it's a great thing. Yeah,
I agree. I really agree.
And so I'm going to ask you, William, what really got you started in the paranormal? What was kind of that turning point for you, and what kind of led up to you?
It took me a long time. I'm going to say it took me a long time, because when I was 3.5 years old, I witnessed my very, very first paranormal experience was with my great-grandfather. Now I know it was my great-grandfather. Was in his room. I was asleep, and a turkey had woke me up. A rooster had woke me up, and I was crying because, kid, I lived in the city all my life. I didn't really know who was what or anything like that. And so it woke me up. I was crying, and I was consulted by this person that said, "It's all right, baby. It's all right. What happened?" And I told him, I said, "That damn bird woke me up." And I'll take care of it, he said. Well, later on, I told my aunt, my great aunt, and she was telling the story of when Papa's is what they called him, his Papa Jim, his prize rooster was killed. The neck was strung. I told her about that story. And so my entire family was never one to shun the paranormal. Matter of fact, my entire family believes in it, almost in a way. They embrace it, because all of us were raised that there's things in this world that we don't understand. My great-grandmother taught us all that. She was Native American Cherokee, and so she really believed that strongly. And so that being my first paranormal experience, and then having little experiences my entire life, not really quite understanding what they were, I thought, what is really going on here in my life that these things are happening around me? Well, Melissa, who is my lovely bride of now going on 20 years, matter of fact, Saturday was our 20th year engagement anniversary. When I met her, it took her almost 2 years to tell me that she had abilities and she could see people, dead people, and she could talk and communicate with spirits. She was afraid that I would shun her, I would make fun of her, I would drag her down to the church and have her ostracized.
Right.
And I told her, I said, really? I said, why didn't you tell me till now? She goes, well, I was afraid to. I said, I think that's neat as heck. And I told her about my background growing up, what happened to me, so we just started swapping stories, and next thing you know, we were clinched. Well, not long after that, we started noticing that her abilities were starting to really kind of mature and grow, and it seemed that every other week or every other month or every other year, she was being confronted by these entities that were just come out of nowhere. And we found out that, she had her abilities a lot stronger than she thought they were. So I guess you could say what my passion was. One afternoon, she come to me crying. She goes, honey, am I crazy? And I said, no, you're not crazy, and I'm going to do everything in my power to prove it to you and everyone else that you're not, that what you're seeing is real. Now, the pivoting point was we were sitting watching the evening news in Austin, Texas. It was in 2010. And we were sitting there, and this 100-year-old rocking chair that had been willed to me started rocking by itself. Now, up until that point in time frame, I was a little skittish about these things. I really didn't understand it much. And when I saw that, I looked at my wife and I said, what made that happen? And she goes, what do you mean? I said, what made that happen? And she goes, I don't understand. I said, what made an immovable object or an inanimate object begin to move on its own? What energy was possessed that made that chair move? It wasn't wind, because we had no front doors open. The AC wasn't strong enough because it had been sitting there for 2 years prior in a condominium and never moved until that one particular night. It wasn't Charlie, who was our 10-year-old Chinese pug, because he was underneath our legs, and Duke, who is our youngest dog, hadn't come on the scene yet. So it was none of those things. And so that night we set up a camera in the living room. We had, and I guess you could say that was our first paranormal investigation. So my experience in it was out of my own personal situation. Instead of going out asking for help, trying to figure it out on my own. Kind of like you got a broken radiator in your car. Instead of taking it to the mechanic, you go out there and fix it yourself, kind of thing.
Right.
So, little by little, as I started, talking to people online, started reading it for myself, started getting into the research and stuff like that, I went ahead and I formed my own opinions, and here we are. And that's what basically got us into it. We're more of a scientific type thing, because we want to, like you, I always was fascinated by science. I was always fascinated. As a matter of fact, I wanted to be a marine biologist when I was a kid. But two things that really held me back. Number one, I hated math. Number two, I hated water. So, right there, So, I kind of figured that I wanted to do something in the scientific realm, and I always had a fascination passed down from my mom and my great-grandmother and everything. I often sit and wonder, was it her love of the paranormal that made me really believe in it and really think that everything was a ghost? And later on in life, learning out that, when you're looking at this thing, you have to kind of find the natural reason of why things are going on. Why is the door opening by itself? Why are there noises in the home? Why are there cold and hot spots? Why are there things that are going on in the house? And It's a learning process. You have to kind of unlearn everything you've learned and just study from the beginning. That's what I'm finding out. But yeah, that's kind of my experience on it. I mean, don't want to bore everybody with my ghost stories, but I've seen, and it's true. I'm not bragging, and I hope no one thinks that I am. And so many people, sometimes when I mention this, people jump down my throat. But it's the God's honest truth. In my time frame, outside of the field, mainly, I have seen 21 different apparitions in my lifetime. Some partial, some full body, some maybe just a foot, some maybe just an arm, some a shadow. But I have seen 21 different apparitions in my lifetime. So, as far as knowing that they're there, I know that for a fact. Why they are there is why I do my research.
Exactly. And I like the way that you approach it. You come from a background of believers, but you've got that scientific curiosity, and you want to apply that to it, not to debunk it, but to find a way to explain it. And that's very much the way that I am with it.
Right.
We talked about that last night, about you have to be kind of half and half. You have to be a believer or there's no sense in investigating, and you have to be a skeptic because you can't believe everything that you see.
Right. It's like, you're going to be a believer in church. You have to be. I mean, it's just why go to church? If you're not a believer, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
You've got to be a skeptic when you're into anything such as this, because let's face it, there's something that goes beyond this realm of our understanding, that goes beyond where we're sitting here in our office right now, in the dungeon where we're at, and where you gentlemen are. There's something beyond that we have to kind of grasp. But at the same time frame, as a believer of the paranormal, after having several different experiences that I couldn't explain away, I know that part of it's real. As far as being a skeptic of it, you have to have that. And the reason I think it's important, why everybody I say you have to have that, is because you have to pour over each and every piece of evidence in a scientific manner. What else could it be other than this? And if nothing else that you apply to the scientific, the scientific standard to it, method, if you will, if you can't answer it by that, then like you said, there's three different types of normal. There's normal, there's abnormal, and there's paranormal. And I completely agree with that 100%. It's interesting. It's an interesting field of study. I think it's
I fit the abnormal part.
Sir?
I said I fit the abnormal part.
I think we do a little bit. Absolutely. We're from the South, my friend, of course.
Right. I think that's like a requirement to fit into this field to begin with.
You have to be abnormal.
Yeah.
Right. Who else would? Most people say, I hear that place is haunted. You don't want to go there, and then you have people like us. I hear that place is haunted. Let's go check it out.
Right.
Go check it out.
Or somebody tells you.
At work this last week, Tuesday was. Well, I worked through Thursday, but everyone was found out that our 20th engagement anniversary was coming up this last weekend, and they're like, "Well, what are you guys going to do?" I said, "Well, most likely we're going to go to a haunted cemetery or something, because that's exactly what we like to do." I don't. It's for me. It's peaceful. Going and walking into a haunted place. It really is. It's like commonplace. I grew up, my grandmother's house was haunted, my great-grandmother's house was haunted, the house I grew up was haunted. So to be in a non-haunted house is almost like boring in a way for me, But anyway, I digress from that.
Don't tell me this place is haunted. You don't want to go there, because I'm going to be packing my bags as soon as it comes out of your mouth. I mean.
Amen to that, brother. I'm
just saying,
I'm going to be going on Expedia buying the tickets. You better watch out. And have the cornbread ready when I get there, too.
That telling me not to go somewhere, about like telling me don't do anything. I
Right,
think.
exactly. What about you, Roger? What got you interested into this field
Well, I
of
mean, I've
greatness?
had, we talked about a lot of this stuff last night. I actually saw spirits when I was 9 years old, but
Mm,
kind of lost touch with that after it got drilled into my head that they didn't exist. But I never forgot what I saw.
right.
So the older I got, and then I had, some personal experiences, years later after I was grown. But, you know, the thing that actually got me to actually wanting to do it was the first time I saw an episode of Ghost Hunters.
Mm,
Because back then they were real.
Mm.
They've lost all that since then, of course, but
mm-hmm.
and now they're canceled. But anyway, back when they were still driving the Roto-Rooter van, and they would actually go to people's houses and try to help families who had problems, who had children in the house that were scared.
Now, Ghost Hunter's been canceled. That's the first time I heard about that.
Yes, it was.
Oh, wow.
Uh, it finally was, yeah. I mean, they
Wow.
ran about 10 years, I think, but anyway. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it
but
was
yeah,
one of
that
those things, I
back
guess.
then when
Well,
when
after a
they
while,
actually cared.
in a way, I'm kind of glad, because after a while, seeing the same thing over and over again,
Well,
it come to a
yeah,
point to where I just stopped watching it, myself personally.
when it got to where they were so big
Hmm.
that they only investigated like big name places and they had all the new equipment and the new vehicles and the new office, and it just wasn't the same. They quit investigating residential places and helping families anymore like they used to.
Yeah.
And it got to the point to where, I'm like, they're not real anymore. They're bought and owned by sci-fi.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
that back then, that's what got me into it. Is not because of the fact that they were, on TV and blah 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 and all that. I could give a rat's butt less about that.
Right.
It's the fact that I saw what they were doing, and I was like, well, I know what I saw when I was a kid,
Hmm.
and I know it was real,
Hmm.
and I can actually get some equipment that will help me prove what I already know.
Right.
So that was kind of the turning point. It's like, well, I've been going, remembering all this stuff and dealing with different little personal experiences all my life and never knew what to do about it. Well, now
Hmm.
I know what I can do about it. So, it kind of began from there, and it had a rough little start, but eventually it all came together.
Right. Right. I hear you.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
I'm just going to throw this in here real quick because there's a little discussion going on in the chat room about this.
All
Um,
right.
and and us all being guys, of course, I know that both of you being married and everything, probably haven't done this in quite a while, but this is something that I may go ahead and own up to. Um, so I'm going to ask, have you ever? They're talking about taking a date to a haunted location.
Have
so
I
so
ever
I'm going.
taken
Oh,
a?
yeah, have you ever taken a date to somewhere that was haunted?
I'm gonna let Roger go first because I'll answer that second. I think the question was, have you ever taken a date to a haunted location? Oh, okay. I guess that counts. Have you, Frank? Have you ever?
Yep, I definitely have.
Okay.
So and you know it was a lot of fun. Of course, now you know I will say this. You know, with what you do as a team, you know, if you're out there, you know, you don't want to try to um you know, get the whole dating thing mixed up with what's going on with the team, or that can be disastrous. That's one of those things. If you ever want to see how disastrous it can be, just try it. That's you know. Um, but that, but yeah, I have. I've taken a date to the really haunted location just to watch them squirm and hang on really tight, you know. So yeah, I'm guilty. I'm a dog. I'm a typical male. I'm going to admit it.
So what happened? I mean, was it like? Did you guys see any activity or anything like that?
Yes, actually we have. I I've gotten a few really good EVPs while doing that, and it was interesting. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So it's something I'll do again. So, we got a comment in the chat room. It says that's why they post no sex signs at haunted locations.
Right. Well, I've got I do have a confession to make. But yeah, I will say it was twice, and both times I was married, and both times we didn't know the place was haunted. Okay. So the first time was when we were celebrating our actual 10th year wedding anniversary, which was back in May of 2005. That was the first time. And so we were staying here in San Antonio at the Hilton Hotel over on the airport, which I understand that nobody, unless you're from San Antonio, know where that's at, but it's just north of about maybe 20 miles north of downtown. And so we were there. And matter of fact, how it ended up was kind of odd because someone actually gave me tickets to that room. They found out it was my 10th year wedding anniversary. And so they just gave me tickets for it. And I was very, very happy. And so my wife and I, we went in to our luggage room and we got everything, put our luggage out. And of course we were going to go and, we went down to the snack bar downstairs to go get us something to snack on. And when we got back up to the room, our bags were unpacked. All of our clothes were put away in a drawer. Our luggage was put in the closet, and we figured, well, I guess it's just, they wanted to come and make sure we were comfortable, and they got everything done. We didn't know. We didn't have any inclination what was going on. And so that night I said, well, let's go ahead and we'll go out to dinner. I'll never forget what I asked. Now, I went to Olive Garden. I know everybody in the chat room is probably going to go, oh my God, 10th year anniversary, you went to Olive Garden. How redneck are you? Well, listen, the wife told me she wanted to go to Olive Garden. And so that's where we went. I mean, that's what you do, right? When the wife says, I want to go to McDonald's, by golly, go to McDonald's. You thank God for all the money you just saved. But we went, go ahead. I'm sure you heard my wife in the background say, her derogatory comment.
It's okay, honey. The sky's the limit. Anything you want on the dollar.
Anything you want on a $1 menu, honey, just go ahead and order. I'll tell you what, I'll even get you the large fry, baby. That's how much I love you so much.
Supersize it. It's our anniversary.
Supersize. It's our anniversary. Supersize. I got a lot of $5 bills, by golly. All right, so we went to Olive Garden, and of course I had a beer or two before while we were there. And Melissa, of course, she had a pina colada, and that's what she wanted, and that's what she got. So we went back to the room, and then we found out that our clothes were put back in the suitcase and on the bed. Now, I said, are they kicking us out? So I called the hotel and I said, hey, did anybody come up to the room here? Because if you did, they packed up our suitcase and stuff. Does that mean, did we do something wrong? We got to leave. And she goes, no, sir, it's fine. But if you want to change rooms, you can. And I thought that was rather odd. I said, no, why would I want to change rooms? She goes, we'll still honor if you want to go to another room, you can. And I said, no, ma'am, we're fine. It's okay. She goes, you sure? I said, absolutely. Positive. So I didn't think anything of it. So we were laying down there, and she fell asleep, and I was watching a movie on a TV. It was Ransom with what's his name, Mel Gibson. And so I was watching that. And then I went to Sports Center, and the TV flipped back to Ransom. And so I looked at my wife, and I said, well, she's asleep, so she couldn't have done it. So I put it back to Sports Center. Then I got up and I went to go use the John, and I went back in there and the TV was off. So I turned the TV back on. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure in the window. Now again, you know, had seen all these apparitions in my lifetime, I knew what it was. And at that time, I couldn't tell. But now when I think back on it, the room had a peculiar vibe to it. Not so much that you were being watched, but just when you walked in, it just had a certain kind of electricity pop in it. Kind of like almost like being in a field of where all your hairs on your arm just stand up, but you're not chilled. It's just that particular kind of feeling it was. Right. So all night long, as we were asleep, we would hear things shuffling in what was the living room area. You know, drawers, you see the drawers open on the desk, and I think I even woke up to see the TV center, the cabinet door slung open and then closed by itself. And then we heard the toilet flush, then we heard the shower come on, then we heard the sink come on, all in procession of one another. And so Melissa got up, turned off the shower, and did the sink and did all that. And the last thing that happened was the covers was ripped off of the bed. Now, I remember waking up, seeing an old man grab the covers off of the blanket, off the bed, but I was asleep. I thought it was a dream. And when we woke up in the morning, the sheets were off the bed, piled up on the other side of the room. Now, if you can imagine, wow. the bed was on one side where the desk was almost 20 feet away. So the blanket was over there. Now, unless you're the bionic man, you can't kick the blanket off that bed. I mean, I know you're hot, but geez, you know. So that's what happened. And I know I didn't have beans that night, if anyone's curious, so it didn't blow them off. But anyway, during the course of that evening, it was just, you know, weird, curious events that just happened. And when we went down, she goes, "You're the only couple that stayed there all night long." And I'm like, why should we even be concerned about that? I said, I'm kind of curious. Why did you guys, what is all that about? She goes, did you guys have any weird activity? I said, yeah, it was nothing, you know, it was nothing that I'm not used to. And her face turned as pale as a sheet. And she told me, the owner of this property haunts that room. And I said, really? And she goes, yeah. I said, well, he didn't bother us. You know, no one got, you know, so he, you know, if all he could do is just tear off the, you know, pull off the blankets and open up a couple of doors, he's cool. I mean, you know, tell him to come to my house. Maybe he can, you know, sweep the floors and mop it and stuff like that for us, something. I mean, you know, I didn't know what to say. I mean, you know, I wasn't scared, you know, just to find out the place was haunted. I wasn't afraid. As a matter of fact, I told the wife, I said, we're going to have to come back and rent that room again. And so when we tried to rent it, they said, no, it's off limits. No one is allowed to go in there. Now, why? The lady who was in there had a heart attack. I'm like, well, geez, no wonder it's haunted. People are dying in that big room. So, but that's what happened. The second occurrence is when I was doing stand-up comedy. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't asked to do comedy per se. I was actually asked to be a doorman. And so... you okay, Roger, by the way?
The what?
Are you okay?
Why wouldn't I be?
Well, you were coughing. I just want to make sure you're all right. You know, I'm sending healing energy your way, brother.
That's normal for me.
Okay, well, God bless you. I'm sending healing energy for you. We were at this place. What was it called, babe? That place we went to? I can't remember either. It was something Egyptian, something another. But anyways, we went in there and they had a whole bunch of Egyptian stuff. Like they had a sarcophagus in there and they had like, those half man, half dog things standing up and everything was all gold and ruby colored and all that stuff. And that night they had strippers in there. Now, I know what you're thinking, and yes, she was with me, and she was cool with it because she said, you're a doorman, you're actually not participating. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I had my badge on, I had my black slacks on, I had all that, and my job was to greet people as they come in the door. Well, this one man come in, he was wearing all black, and he come in and he went right through me. Now, again, being in haunted locations before at the age of 7, seeing a dress float by itself at the Whitty Museum here, things just kind of don't bother me like that anymore. So to me, it was just normal, And so I would stop people coming in, and I would just, check their ID and make sure that they were 21 or older, and I'd let them in. Well, they finally gave me a relief, and I said, well, I'm going to go sit down and get me a beer. So I got me a beer. Now, I'm the only one at the bar. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, and everyone's already packing up and going. So I was setting my beer on one side, right in front of me, talking to one of the comedians who was a buddy of mine. We were talking about jokes and stuff, and I went to go grab my beer, and it was way on the other end of the bar, which is like 6 feet away. Again, there's no one there. So I went and I got it and put it back, and I had the cap, which was right beside it. And then when I finished my beer, I went to put the cap on top of the beer, which is customary. It's what I like to do. And the cap was completely on about another 5 feet away from us on this catwalk that was sitting right adjacent to the bar. So I asked one of the guys, I said, is this place haunted? He goes, yeah, it's supposed to be, but, we don't ever talk about it. I said, because some really cool activity happened. So those are the only 2 times that I ever took and I know I'm burning up a lot of recording time. I'm sorry, guys, but those are the only 2 times that I've ever taken a date to a haunted location. Before, I never really dated because I didn't like any of the girls in high school or college. They were too stuck up. But when I met my wife, it was like, it was end all be all of all dates, I guess you could say, and the rest is history.
Right. See, I wasn't that lucky.
Jack and Jill.
Yeah. I ended up, it's kind of been one of those where, some people meet that one particular person and settle down, and they don't have to do that. No, with me, I've been on the dating scene for a long time. So
now let me ask you. Let me ask you a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Do you think that has anything to do with the paranormal? I mean, not saying that the paranormal was what caused that situation, but do you think that how much stress does that put on a relationship when one person's into paranormal and the other person's maybe a skeptic or a non-believer or possibly even afraid of the paranormal?
Well, now, I will definitely say that, like if I meet a woman that maybe I'm interested in dating her, we start talking, and it's kind of funny when she asks what I do. And, I always know that I may get one of 2 responses. Either she's going to be like, oh, that's really cool, or they're going to run.
Right. They're going to run for the hills.
Right. Splashing holy water at me as they retreat, and
as they retreat. Let me bring my wife up to speed because she is my co-host. She's in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do it for a little bit, and I'm going to hand the mic to her if you guys don't mind, and have her have a say when maybe she could tell about some of her paranormal experiences, what got her in the field. But we were talking about the paranormal relationships and how can it adversely affect or not affect. situation, and he said they would run for the hills, or they would be all like, "Oh, cool," like want his autograph and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, that was cool. Well, geez, I had a brain fart, and that happens. That happens way too often. So, what's the most memorable? I'm curious, out of both of you guys, what's the most memorable thing that's ever happened in the paranormal field to either one of you guys?
He had to go there.
Yeah. Come on, let's talk about
it. He had to go there, and Frank knows exactly where my mind went.
Right. Right. I know exactly what Roger's about to bring up, and yeah, you got to tell it. You got to tell it.
We did an investigation over here, the next town over from me, and we were there. Of course, several things set off the red flags right away. Anyway, but when I got there, me and another guy that was with me got there first. And the husband took us out in the backyard and was showing us out by the tree line where there was stuff they supposedly saw going on out there all the time. And I turned around and I'm looking back toward the house, and the first thing I noticed is on each side of the house there's a telephone pole.
All right.
And on each telephone pole there's a huge, what do you call them, transformer. Automatically, my mind went, blink, EMF fills out the, Okay, so that was the first flag.
Okay.
Second flag was when our team founder, Dusty Ward, was in one of the bedrooms. It was actually the parents' bedroom. And the husband was in there showing him, where stuff happened in there. Pulls out a drawer and says, "This is where we keep all our drugs." And it's full of, he said it was full of every kind of pill you could think of.
Oh, man.
All kinds of stuff. And, okay.
We got our reds in this section, we got our uppers in this section, we got our downers in this section.
Yes, there you go. Yeah, and here's where we keep the Oxycontin and all that. And, anyway, I'm in the front bedroom. I think I was in the front, or on the north side. I'm in there doing EVP, right? Well, Dusty's in the living room area, and the wife is telling him, well, they've got a little back porch that serves as like it's not really a porch because they're in a double wide, right. But it's like a little room that has a back door going out, but it also serves as like the laundry room.
Okay.
So it has the washer and dryer and all that in there. Okay. And up above the dryer, there was like a shelf.
Okay.
And on this shelf is a little stick tree thing, like you would hang stuff on. Like, I don't know, you might hang hats on there or whatever. She's telling him about the snake. And the snake is wrapped around the stick tree.
All right.
And it's an invisible 15-foot anaconda.
Wow.
And it's wrapped around the tree, right? And he goes, she goes, "Can you get it out of the house? Can you get it out of the house?" And he's like, "Yeah, I think I can do that," Being helpful, always trying to help the client feel better,
Right.
This is Dusty. So he reaches up there, and he's got his fingers about 6 inches apart, maybe, his hands. And he goes, "Have I got it?" And she's like, "No, it's bigger." So he spreads his hands out. Now his fingers are about like 10, 12 inches apart. And she's like, he's like, "Have I got it?" "Yeah." So he unwraps this snake from the stick tree, right?
Imaginary snake, right?
Yes, this invisible 15-foot anaconda.
Wow.
From this stick tree, and he's got it like down about waist level, and he's got his hands there. And she goes, You don't have its head. It's biting you right now. Okay, so he kind of, moves his hands forward a little bit. And he goes, have I got it now? She's like, yeah. And he goes, well, open the door. What? He goes, open the door. I can't let go of the snake. So, now, you got to remember that prior to this, he had told her that he had a dead, because he works at the prison, right? So he told her that he had a dead convict ghost that followed him everywhere he went.
Right.
Wow.
Now, these people are going to believe this because they've got the drawer full of drugs. Remember that.
Of course. Yes.
Anyway, so she opens the door and he drags the 15-foot invisible anaconda out into the yard.
Uh-huh.
And he says, okay, I'm going to have convict ghosts kill it so it can't come back in and bother you anymore. He goes, convict, kill that snake. And he says, okay, we can go back inside. It won't come back in the house no more. It won't bother you no more.
Right.
And I missed all that because I was in the other room doing EVP. But when we left, we all stopped at the McDonald's in town there and everything. And we got out. We were saying he demonstrated the whole thing about how he got the snake out of the house. I was laughing so hard I had tears running down my face. I couldn't breathe. I was laughing so hard. Because he did it with all the hand gestures and everything, just like he did when he was doing it for her. I'm like, really? He said, yeah. He said, and this was after, the husband had showed me where they keep all their drugs. I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, that would have to stand out as the most unique.
Unique. Wow, that is kind of unique. That is kind of unique if you really stop and think about it.
I hear that the invisible anacondas are native to the tropical regions of Tennessee.
Yeah, so. And I keep telling you, we don't have any tropical regions in Tennessee. Trust me, I wish we did have a tropical region in Tennessee.
Especially right about now.
Right,
especially when you have 15-foot invisible snakes that you can take there and turn loose, the humane way to get rid of one.
Right. Oh my Lord. That is just too that is too funny, but in a way it's kind of sad. I mean, I do feel sorry for those folks, but those kind of folks that they have to put themselves through so much abuse in that form of fashion that they actually trip right there in front of you fellas. But that is kind of funny.
This guy, and according to this is what the wife told me, because I went and did an interview with them before we ever went to do the investigation. And she was telling me that he had not been to work in 3 weeks because the spirits were attacking her and he was scared to leave her there alone.
Right.
And I think the only spirits that were attacking her were in that drawer in the other room, but that's beside the point.
That and the bottles that were that was in the bottles that were in the
hid in the pantry or hid in the cabinets or whatever.
I can't help but just when he tells that story and he's talking about the drawer with all the pill bottles in it, I can't help but picture someone putting a sticker on the front of that drawer off of one of the computers that from about 2010 2011 with the old Microsoft logo on it, the one that says "Where do you want to go today?"
Yeah,
you just open that drawer and just pretty much make your choice right there.
Pretty much anywhere you want to go, that's right. The ride is free.
Right.
Make sure all hands and legs are in a safe location while you.
There you go. Hey, don't be sticking your arms out the window. What's wrong with you?
Right. Yeah. Make sure your head is inside before the door of the mothership closes.
Or you walk in there and it's like that one part of the movie The Craft at the end. Mm-hmm. I'm flying.
Right. But really though, talking about things like that. I was looking at some of the conversation going in the chat room right now about a case involving some missing medications and the people suspecting that spirits are stealing them. And
now I've never met a stone spirit, but
Right, right.
If I ever do, might be interesting.
I actually received a call about a case like that back a few months ago, and I don't believe it's anyhow related to the case that they're talking about. Um, and so I was just going to ask if either one of you have ever gotten a call from a client who says, "Hey, I believe there is a spirit who is taking my medicine."
I can't say I've ever had that happen.
Thank
Now,
God.
I have had people say that their keys would go missing, or jewelry or something like that, a ring or something that they'd laid on a table would disappear and wind up somewhere else and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I had a client that sent me some video of said that people were showing up on her night vision cameras at night, and when I looked at it, it was her garden gnomes. And I said, "You mean those that are standing right there?" And she goes, "Yes, with the pointy hats on." I said, "I think those are garden gnomes." "Well, they move." I said, "Ma'am, I watched it. It kind of looks like it's the sun coming up." "No, it's not. They're moving, but they move very slowly." I'm like, "Okay, all right." So that's about the only, I think, weirdest one that I've ever had in that regards of that. Ouija boards, of course, people trying to get some information about how to get rid of Ouija boards, and to this day I point them, because I've never dealt with Ouija boards myself personally, but I do know that the worst thing you can do is burn a Ouija board. At least from some of the research that I've done on them.
How many times have you had someone send you a Ouija board or an object they think is haunted or cursed because they want to be rid of it?
Never. I've never had that. Obviously, it's happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So what object were you sent?
Well, sometime I'll show you the collection.
Oh, wow. Collection. Wow. Well, I believe you, but I do believe though that objects can be possessed and haunted. I've had experience in my own home growing up with a cabinet, dining room hutch, if you will, that came from a house where a lot of abuse happened. And I'm talking both mental, sexual, you name it. And that thing it reeked of different kinds of odors and smells every time you passed it. It just smelled like something was rotten inside of it. Even though it was solid wood, the wood smelled rotten. I don't know if you ever smelled rotten wood, but after it dries, it's probably one of the worst smells you could actually smell, especially when you sand it, I believe that objects can be haunted. I guess which brings up another question. Let's open up that can of worms. Why do you think objects are haunted or remain haunted?
Let me see. Well, I think, Roger, were you wanting to take a break?
We're going to take a break on the hour. It's about a minute or so away, but let's save that till we come back.
Okay.
Yeah, because I definitely want to get into that, because I've got a couple of things that I want to bring up on the haunted objects, and a really cool story I want to tell everyone about of something that was just sent to the team.
Oh, and you had a couple of things that you said you were going to mention too earlier that you haven't told anybody about yet, so we're kind of waiting to hear about that too.
Right. So yeah, we'll get us a little break in, and then we'll go.
Okay, guys and ladies, we're going to be going on about a 5-minute break here in a few seconds, and go refresh your coffee, tea, vodka, Jim Beam, whatever it is you got, and
all the above.
And we will be back with some more interesting and Frank Lee stuff. So
absolutely, we'll be back, and we will talk some more paranormal stuff as Duke takes us out with the growling bark. All right. All right.
Okay, y'all, we'll be back.
All right.
Okay, everybody, we are back. Hope you missed us.
All these crazy guys from the South.
Yeah.
Right. If you have missed us, just don't worry. You're
If
gonna
you
get
didn't
better.
miss us, don't tell us, because we bruise easy.
Very, very soft skin.
Right. Right. So, and right before the break, we were talking about haunted objects.
Right.
Haunted objects.
Yes. And I had mentioned some of the objects that have been sent to me. And I was asking if either of you, now, I don't know how much you ran into it. I know a lot of investigators have had this experience as well. You go on a case, people get creeped out by something that's at their house. They tell you, look, I don't want it here. Take it, do something with it, dispose of it, just get it out of here. And it's, something they feel is cursed. They feel like it's haunted. They just don't want it there. And so yeah, I've got a little bit of a collection over the years of those type of objects. Small knickknacks, dolls, clowns, Ouija boards. I can't tell you how many I've had given to me, mailed to me, just show up in the mailbox.
What do you do now that you brought that up? What do you do with the Ouija boards?
I've got a place out in my storage shed that I keep them in. I keep everything with some sea salt around it and keep it sealed up. Because I kind of believe that in the old theory, I try to keep a scientific mindset on most things. But my thing is, if there is something attached to something, to an object, then I personally feel like if I destroy the object, then I would be afraid that I would be more likely to set whatever is attached to it. And you've got to keep in mind, if these people are so afraid of it, they want to just get rid of it because they're scared of it, terrified, then they, then it's probably not something very nice. So I feel like it's probably better to, I guess you'd say, keep the genie in the bottle. And, just keep the object. And, just keep it sealed up. Keep it up. I don't bring it in the house. I keep it in my storage. And do it that way instead of setting something loose for it to go somewhere else or harm anyone else. So I've gotten quite a few Ouija boards over the years. We've had dolls, clowns, figurines, toys, pieces of furniture, photos, pictures, dishes. I mean, just clothing. I mean, just, some, just all kinds of things. We recently had an object that was sent to Donald, and of course, Donald's our operations manager for the team.
Okay.
And he talks to a lot of people for us. That, a lot of people, when they see the team, they see me. And I always try to bring Donald up because he's always behind the scenes and he does so much for the team. I can't brag on that man enough. I mean, he is one of the hardest working people I've ever met in my life. But
I tried to bring him back on and he didn't answer, so I don't know if he's just not getting connected or what. But
yeah, but the area he's in is not exactly the best for their internet connections. Um, I don't think they have fiber optic out there for their internet yet. Not sure. But you know, he talks to so many people, and he he recently had someone give an object to him that I can't remember if it was a father or an uncle, but someone in the family had fought in the Korean War and had brought back some things that they had acquired while they were in Korea. Well, when they brought these objects in the house, they started seeing shadows, they started hearing noises, things started being moved around in the house, and just all kinds of weird activities started. Well, they started basically using process of elimination to try to see what it was linked to. And they narrowed it down to this strange looking object that looks like it was made out of ivory, that was carved with skulls and snakes and all of this on it. It looked like an ivory dagger almost.
Okay.
But it was called a FURPA, PHURPA, and the way that he found out about it was he had to get in touch with some people, and ended up getting in touch with one of the professors at Columbia University, I believe it was, who was able to really give him the rundown on it. And between what the professor told him and he got in touch with a Tibetan monk who explained it, it was actually used as a ceremonial piece that someone would use while meditating and for like conjuring and things like that. And so this person, you know, they had no idea that they had this in their home. And of course now, you know, Donald's got it over at his house, and you know, he's getting to deal with that. But you know, that just comes to show you some of the strange objects that we see, because you know, if we weren't in this field, who would think that you would have a you know, a Tibetan relic used by monks sitting in your house.
Worldwide brought up a good question in chat. Says, what about items taken home from dead Germans at war after just being killed?
Mm-hmm. And you know, you see so many accounts of that. You know, here just a few weeks ago, I interviewed Anita and Tenzo on the show. And you know, her case, they were she was an executor over a case that was one of her good friends was an anthropologist, and he was doing some work, I believe, in Peru. Well, he had just enough artifacts he collected over the years to fill a museum. Well, he died suddenly and unexpectedly. And her being the executor of his estate, she went over there to work on the case and sort through everything, get it ready so that everyone got everything that was being willed to them correctly. And as she was doing that, they started being literally attacked by things that they couldn't see.
Wow.
And the object that everything got traced back to, found out was bought from a street peddler in Peru, and they believe was taken from a grave in Peru.
Wow.
And you find accounts of things like that so many times.
Right. My grandfather had a double-barrel 16-gauge shotgun that was used in World War II. It was from Germany. You know, it still had the shoulder strap and everything on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to hunt with that thing, and I'd always feel creeped out. I don't know why, but whenever I'd take that gun hunting, I'd feel creeped out with it, you know.
All right. Well, speaking of guns, my wife and I had a situation we lived at when we were in Austin, and this homeless guy was actually stalking Melissa, my wife. And so I went out to a pawn shop and I bought a shotgun and took it home. You know, not thinking anything of it. And so I was Christmas time. The Christmas time was over. It was around, I guess, around April or March. Melissa told me, she goes, "Honey, something really weird happened today." I said, "Well, do tell." It was a pump, 12 gauge shotgun. It was a not a Mossberg, Remington Model 870 pump 12 gauge shotgun. She said, "Well, the chamber, I heard it. I heard the chamber like it was rounding a gun." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And she goes, "Well, it sounded like it was somebody had chambered it, you know, like if somebody had pumped it." And I said, "Really?" And she goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you know," and I thought, well, maybe she's just, you know, hearing things, or maybe she's just afraid that the gun's in the house. Because, you know, I had my gun, of course, was by my side of the bed on the wall, and I had the shells in the drawer, so in case I had to get it, I could load it really quickly. And it, of course, it has a breech loader up underneath it. You can pump it in, and of course, you're ready to go if you ever had to do it. You know, and I think it really only need one shot, you know, with the 12 gauge. And so I told her, I said, "Don't worry about it." I said, "You know, you're probably just afraid." And of course, that ticked her off. And I didn't think anything of it. You know, to me, I've been around guns all my life. It never bothered me. Well, it was Friday night, and I was home, and we were getting ready to go to bed because the next day we had an investigation we were going to go to. And I had this strangest dream that the gun was pointed at me. Now, nobody was holding it, but the gun was pointed at me while I was asleep, which was weird. Okay. Now, I woke up and I'm like, okay, well, maybe what she said is influencing that dream, so I'm just gonna, you know, not even worry about it. And so the next day, I woke up and I went into the living room and I got me some coffee. I heard the gun chamber. So I went in there and I took it apart, took out the spring, took out everything, made sure that it wasn't, you know, too oiled too much to where the chamber would fall because of gravity, which is almost impossible because, I mean, you actually have to hit the release before you can actually chamber it, you know?
Right.
You know, so I said, well, maybe the release is bad. So I went and I checked the release, and I mean, it was not hard to push, but it wasn't easy to push, and it was locked in position. I mean, it had a little play in it, but every pump shotgun is supposed to have a little play, you know, because that's the way it's intended, right? But it didn't have too much play, so I know everything was actually as it should be. And so I went to bed, and I didn't think anything of it. So maybe I'm hearing things. Maybe I'm hearing things, you know. And so I didn't think anything of it. Went to bed that night. As I was in bed, I heard the thing chamber to me. Now, I did some research on it. And you go to any website, you can pull up the model number, and it'll tell you, you know, kind of the history of that gun. Well, the model number that was actually used as self-defense, and a man actually shot somebody with that gun. And so when I found that out, I told my wife, I said, there's really only one way to get rid of this, and that's to get the gun out of the house. And so that's what I did. I took it back to the pawn shop, and I said, look, I know I can't get my money back on it, so I just want to sell it for whatever you give it to me. And he said, well, why? Is there something wrong with this? It's never been shot. I said, I just want to get rid of it. And so I got rid of it. Now, I have a haunted object in my house now. And when we...
I love the chair.
Yeah. Now, of course, this may be the mystique, but from the seller I bought it from, and it was a I don't want to say a dealership because it really wasn't, but it was a antique shop here in town. Supposedly, in the Spanish tradition, if a child died, they would take the child, or not the child itself, but they would make a life-size, lifelike image of the doll, of the child, and make it into a doll. Not the child itself, but they would set it in the chair, either for the child to play with, or so that way the child was always memorized or remembered. And this was back in the 1700s. And supposedly
concept of a death mask, but on a grander scale.
On a grander scale, right? Now, what I've done was I brought it in here, and my wife and I we prayed over it. We've anointed it with holy oil and water, and I put salt on it. And the reason why we done that is because after we got it in here, a couple occasions in a dungeon where you would open up the door, and it's like you hit something as the door was open, like somebody was standing in there by the door. Now, I checked everything. I checked to make sure the door frame wasn't loose, make sure that there was nothing. Of course, most obvious thing in the door, there wasn't. A couple of times I went to close the door, and the handle was literally taken out of my hand. And so, just a couple things like that. I told my wife, I said, well, it's not nothing really bad. Let's just go ahead and we'll, do that. I'm not going to get rid of the chair. I noticed after I'd done that, the activity kind of stopped. But I'm thinking that's why that particular night, last Friday night, and every night we do a show, we capture EVPs, is because of what's attached to that chair. Now, I don't think it's bad, because, like I said, the dogs don't seem to be affected by it. Melissa, my wife, or I don't seem to be affected by it, so I'm not going to get rid of it because I'm not afraid of it. But one object that we did buy with the chair, and that was a different story. It was a painting of a woman, and you could see that she was rather unclothed, but her back was facing you, and she was covered up, so it was, discreet, but still it was a beautiful painting. And that entire 6 months that we had it, Melissa saw shadows in the bedroom. She actually saw an image of a woman in the bedroom, and actually, you would feel somebody sit on the edge of the bed while you were trying to sleep at night, especially on my side or my wife's side. Now, what really kind of prompted me to get rid of it is I would actually feel warm breath on my neck as I was getting ready to go to bed at night. And sometimes Melissa can't sleep, so I'm in the bedroom by myself. And when I felt the warm breath on the back of my neck, I told my wife, I said, well, that's kind of freaking me out to the point to where I think we need to maybe get rid of it. We salted it and everything. It just continued. Ever since the object has been out of the house, we haven't had any more problems. But compared to what happened when I was a kid living at my mom and dad's house, that's child's play to some of the things that I've encountered with haunted objects. So then I won't get into it. I don't want this to be, a whole long-winded, drawn-out thing. And I've got so many experiences that are outside the field that I've had to deal with that I can understand why people would be freaked out by these things. So I understand, and I do believe that haunted objects spirits can attach to anything that has substance, anything that has energy. Spirits will and can attach to these things. My question that I have, since Ouija boards was brought up a couple of times, how do you get rid of a Ouija board if you decide to just completely get rid of it? How can you destroy it if you can?
I have yet to find an answer to that question that I would be comfortable giving to someone. Now, I've heard all of the answers, like one was, or well, I'll just say all of them were very ritualistic and very out there, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to be really open-minded, but I'm kind of a little bit of a skeptic. I absolutely believe in paranormal activity, but I'm more kind of the left brain, or more the right brain logic, hard-nosed science guy. I want to see I want to see in black and white. How does it work? So with me, of all of the solutions I've heard, now I have heard to bury them. I haven't really tried that much, but I would think, me personally, that would be the solution that I would go for. Now, the ones that I've been sent, most of them are in my storage in a tub, filled with salt. But that would be it if I were going to dispose of one. What I would do. I mean, I've seen so many cases where people burn them, that break them, everything else, and lo and behold, it shows back up like a couple days later. And there's so many strange things that couldn't be explained.
That's what happened to my mom. That's what happened to my mom. Go ahead. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would say if you insisted on, getting it away, if you had that notion that it had to be just completely gone somewhere, then I would think that burying it would be the most logical, because it's intact. It's not setting anything that might be trapped to it free.
Right.
But it's away from your location.
Right. That's probably going to be the main. That's probably going to be the main thing. Bury it somewhere off property. You dispose of it somewhere off property. What about cases involving haunted land? Have you ever come across anything like that? And how did you how did you deal with it? Or how did you maybe help the client deal with it? Or what information have you ever, encountered with that?
Actually, I've came across that quite a few times. It's funny. One of the biggest things that I have, one of the biggest misconceptions that I've seen with people concerning paranormal is that just because a place is old or abandoned means it's haunted, and that just because it's new means it's not.
Right.
And we have investigated houses, quite a few that were fairly new houses that were haunted. And matter of fact, about 2 years ago, we had a case. The very first people to own the home, they didn't build the home, but it was built by a development company. Development company built that house, several close to it. So they buy the house 6 months after it's built. They're the first people to live there. The day they move in, it's a haunted house. Come to find out, it was in an area that was in the path of one of the charges during a Civil War battle. And there were some, we found out that there were some battles close to the property.
Right.
And, all the ties were to the land. And, in a case like that, the way that we do it is we treat it the same as we would with a haunted house. You see if there can be some kind of resolution made first and foremost. Why are they there? Are they trying to communicate something? What is holding them there that's keeping them from moving on. And, and of course that's after you determine if are you dealing with intelligent activity, or is this just something residual to begin with?
Right.
Which is something that, that's a whole other kind of worms that we can get into as well.
Because residual is...
That mistake made a lot.
Right.
Go ahead.
Now, here's one question that I've asked before, and I've asked this a lot, and I've gotten, different answers from different people. But can residual energy at times also act like intelligent energy? Or is it just residual where the fact that it's just there? It's like a mountain. It's gonna always be there regardless. Or can it have times where it will act intelligent?
It can be dealt with if you can identify what is triggering the activity. And this is where the very first time that I talk to a client about a case, I instruct them to start a log of everything that happens, and I have them, I have them backdated as far as they can remember, and I have them keep that log for every day, all the way up until we come out and do our preliminary investigation, and keep it all the way through our follow-up. That way, we can look at that log, and it helps spot, what's going on. And in that log, it spots when this particular occurrence happened. Were you alone? Were people in the house? Who was over? What time of day was it? Were the lights on? Were the lights off? What room were you in? And you can spot so many patterns, and you can see what your triggers are. And that will answer so many questions in itself. But with something residual, if you can determine, and it's not always easy, because it's not like you've got a remote control switch that sets it off.
No. Is there a different feeling? Is there a different feeling between? And I guess this would be a good question for an empath or for somebody who has abilities. But is there a different feel when it comes to an intelligent haunting versus a residual haunting? And how can, if you can, describe that feeling?
Well, of course, someone who's a sensitive or empath or has abilities or whatnot would be able to differentiate much better. But to just the average person, the key thing that they're going to look at is it interactive? But now, while saying that, they're of course going to look at, if I ask a question, if I speak, does it speak back? Does it, how does it relate to me? But let me ask you this. Have you ever called someone and been fooled by an answering machine?
Yeah.
So you weren't talking to a real person. You were talking to a recording, but it caught you off guard for just that moment there. You thought that you were mistaken, and
then
that
after a
happens
while, right? After a while,
as it plays through, you start noticing by the way that it flows through. Okay, wait a second. This isn't a real person. This is a recording, and it's the same way. It's the same.
They're talking about echoes. So, do you hear the echo now while I'm talking? Anybody in there just say yay or nay?
Echo.
Okay,
echo,
it's not me.
Echo.
Not me. I don't have anything open. The only thing I've got open right now is the chat room and my Facebook. That's all I've got open. And on Facebook, I'm on my homepage, so that's all I've got open.
Okay, so I think whatever just happened somehow killed the echo. Am I correct? Okay, good deal. No more echo. Oh, wait.
Echo.
Wait, I'm echo?
Frank, you are an echo.
Wait, who says I'm echo?
Worldwide said you are an echo.
Echo.
You are echo.
Must have gotten in touch with that client that had the fun drawer. Anyways,
Worldwide said Frank's the echo.
Frank's the echo.
Hey, I've been called much worse.
Oh yeah. So it is now. I've been had a lot of different experiences. Like, you know, slapped and hit, jumped on, scratched. Have any of you gentlemen ever had any of that happen in an investigation before? Now that we can pretty much deem as being intelligent. You know, not so much residual. But when you're dealing with something like that, are you dealing with just a very, very powerful human spirit, or are you dealing with demonic? Now, I know the whole thing about 3 scratches as the mockery of the Holy Trinity, but could it also possibly be a very strong, very angry, very vindictive human entity?
I would think so, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to throw this question out there. If you're somewhere, you have someone that's moved in, and you can't physically push them out the door. You can't physically evict them. There's not much you can do about them being there. Your only option is really to scare them off, or coerce them to leave somehow. What the first thing you're going to do is you're going to observe what they do. You're going to observe what they watch. You're going to observe what they talk about, and you're going to be paying attention to all of this. And you're going to use that. If you know that if they think that hearing 3 knocks on the wall or getting 3 scratches is going to make them think that it's a demon and they had better run for the hills, get out of there as quick as they can. And this is just me speaking personally.
Right.
And if I'm a ghost and I want somebody out of wherever I'm haunting, then I'm going to make them think that I'm the biggest, baddest demon that they ever came across. I'm not going to, I'm not going to come across as the one wearing a little sheet going boo. I'm going to make them think that I'm one step shy of Satan himself, and they better run.
Yeah, you're going to John Wayne it as much as you can, right?
Exactly. And I think that happens quite a bit.
Do you think it's a misconception of what actual demonic haunting is and what the different types, the not being able to understand, or maybe just, I guess, that fear of that aspect of it,
Mm-hmm.
Because, and again, I have to only go back on my upbringing, and that I was upbringed by my great grandmother. And oh boy, I can remember there was a time where we were over at her house and she asked us kids to get out of the room because there was something going on that was crazy in the room or something like that. Somebody had brought in some kind of movie, or somebody had brought in something into the house. And I remember my great grandmother literally cleaning the house for like almost an hour, just taking her Bible and praying, and there were several of them doing it. And it stopped immediately. My grandmother was really, really strong on that. And it was my my cousin had seen something crazy. I think we were talking about that, a haunted picture, which, oh boy, we got a long list of stuff we could talk about. And here I am, I'm completely monopolizing everything. I know you had some questions you wanted to bring in about the paranormal that you wanted to throw at us, so I'm almost ready and prepared for that.
Well, and this is great that we've been talking about residual activity and things like that, because it kind of relates to that. Have you ever noticed the correlation with railroad tracks? And there's most teams always do a geological survey before an investigation. I know we always do. We're going to look at the address of the property before we investigate. We're going to check the geological composition, see if we can get a good geological survey, see if there's any underground water sources, see if there's any limestone deposits, granite deposits, quartz, whatever on the property. We're going to look at the deeds, see if perhaps a railroad ever went through the property, or if there's any mine shafts underneath, anything like that. Also looking at historical maps, see what the property used to be, see what was next door to it, and things like that through the years. But, if you notice, certain things always seem to be related. One of them being running water seems to always show a correlation to paranormal activity. But
and the limestone.
And the limestone. But have you ever noticed the correlation between places located near railroad tracks and being haunted?
No, actually, I never thought of that.
Not the correlation, but I had an aunt that had a home that was, when I say right next to a railroad track, fellas, I mean you could literally, the side windows, you could literally reach out and touch the base of the railroad tracks. It was just that close here in Tyler, Texas. Tyler, Texas. Because they lived in Buda, then they moved to Tyler, and they bought an old abandoned home. And so one night I was there, and it was during the summertime, and I had told my Aunt Mildred, was her name, that I would go and spend the weekend, or this week with her and help her do chores and stuff like that. Milk cows, herd goats, stuff like that. And so I did, and it was about a weekend. My cousins, they tried to scare me and tell me the home was haunted and tell me ghost stories and stuff like that at night. And, oh God, at that time frame, I was like, I guess 11. And so one of my cousins, she went up in the rafters of the roof. And this house, when I say it was abandoned, I mean literally it was a work in progress. There was holes literally in the wall that was covered up with nothing more than just a tarp. And so there my cousin was up in the attic, and they were talking about the haunted arm in the railroad track. And so she went and she put her arm through a hole in the ceiling and was like, "I'm gonna get you." And so, of course, as a kid, I looked up and everyone was laughing. They were laughing. I looked up at her and I said, "Who is that girl next to you?" And she said, "You're trying to scare me, William David Pritchard. You better stop it." And about maybe 15 minutes later, I heard a scream come from up there, and then thump, 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 thump. And sure enough, there was a little girl up there that she had saw. So I can believe it, and the only thing that I can maybe attest to it of what was, yes, I heard that too, a heavy sigh. What was the area about, who lived there prior? Had there been any deaths associated with the railroad track? What was in the location? Texas is notorious for being literally a bed of limestone from one tip to the other. So it could have been anything that that made that happen. But I don't think every location would be. I think it's going to be dependent upon the situation. But at the same time frame, when you look at the energy of the train that's going by, I can't think of anything perfect, kinetic energy that would actually fuel paranormal activity.
Well, and the reason I'm asking that is, well, I'm going to ask this, and most everyone listening is going to be familiar with the stone tape theory, of course, meaning that, the past events can imprint themselves or record themselves onto certain materials, such as stone or timber, lumber, wood, things like that, those sort of things. Now, if you subscribe to Newton, how do you feel about stone tape theory? Let me ask you that.
I'm not familiar with the stone tape theory, actually.
Okay,
It's like what creates the residual haunting.
Right. It's basically a fancy way of saying that, residual hauntings are created from psychic imprints being trapped or imprinted into materials like stone, particularly limestone, granite, quartz, sandstone, igneous rocks, timbers, concrete, things like that. And, when the conditions are just right, there's an energetic release that causes these events to replay themselves like a movie, which causes a residual haunting. Now, and that's a popular theory for residual hauntings.
Well, we did do an experiment once with certain headstones at Oakwood Cemetery. Now, we talked a little bit about Oakwood Cemetery last night being over 40 acres. Well, part of Oakwood Cemetery was built back in the early 17 and 1800s. Other parts of it were built in the early 1900s. And those parts were notorious for having almost 100% limestone. The rest of it was just all marble. And then I realized that limestone would have been for the paupers or the people who didn't have enough money. Marble, of course, would have been for the more well-to-do. So we did the test on both marble and limestone structures, and we got more of an EVP from both limestone, than we did from the marble. Now I said, okay, well, maybe it's just because this location is supposed to be crazy haunted. It was number 4 on the most haunted locations in the city of Austin. But I can contest to that because of the number of EVPs we caught, the number of photographs we caught, everything. So I said, well, let's go. I told Melissa, I said, let's go into the natural setting and do EVP sessions there and maybe do an investigation. And we caught just as much, if not more, from natural limestone than we did from the processed, quote-unquote, limestone. So our theory, our conclusion was that limestone in and of itself holds energy. Now, having said that, do I believe that it would be on certain times in certain areas? Well, I guess you would have to say that all the conditions would have to be absolutely correct, but it would also depend on the nature of that location, depend on what happened at that location. For example, if somebody was murdered at a location that just happened to have limestone in the area, that could be one reason why the energy continues. But if you're on a Native American soil where countless number of slaughters and a lot of energy went down, I think it's going to be probably on a grander scale or even more so haunted. And I don't think the conditions have to be correct. I just think that energy is absorbed into that area. We have to look at natural elements like trees, running water, limestone, quartz, crystal. These things emit and store energy. A good example would be the crystal skulls. They said there's so much, it has the ability to hold so much energy. You could literally, at that time frame, to take 5 million supercomputers and store that energy within that one crystal skull.
Mm-hmm.
So if all this energy and all these things that are being played apart, yeah, that's why a location would be haunted because of that. But I don't think it's haunted simply because there's limestone there. I think it could. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm so glad you brought up the crystal skulls.
Okay.
But just,
I thought you were going to say something about it. You go, I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, no,
it reminds me of.
well, particularly for that, to make that point about it being able to not only store data but conduct energy.
Well, they were actually in the 70s did a test on it, and this was prompted by that show In Search Of. So the scientists said, okay, we saw it on TV, now we're actually going to do our own tests. And what they actually found was not only could it store data, but they could literally connect it to processors and actually retrieve data from this crystal skull. I mean, there was one story where they did a printout, and the printout went for days of just information that was coming from these things. Now, where was the information coming from? I don't know. I mean, my mind's not that quick or sharp, especially at 8:54 p.m. Central Standard Time to give you real good information. But I can say this: eons, these people. They made their statues from these elements. Marble, crystal, wood. They did that for a reason. Because these things held energy. The Native Americans had a very strong belief that everything is tied to the land. Whether it's of the spirit realm, whether it's human, animal, godlike, demon-like, everything had some kind of attachment to the earth. Mother Earth, as they called it. So yeah, you know, it's there. You just gotta research it and find it. You know, as a matter of fact, there was a theory a while back, and we were trying to see if it's actually true that older tombstones actually glow at certain times of the day or night. Now, being daytime investigators, it's kind of hard to prove that theory because, of course, it's daytime. But at nighttime, we've taken photographs of Oakwood Cemetery, and strange lights can be seen. You know, now is it because it's emitting from the ground itself? Is it like the Marfa lights, or is it because of the energy that's in that one area? Is it because of the location itself was actually erected on Indian massacre ground? Who knows? You know, but being the fact that it is right smack dab in the middle of the hill country, being the fact that the hill country is 99.95% limestone on top, granite on the bottom. There went that hiss again, by the way. Second hiss that I heard so far. Coming in, I've got to conclude that it's got to have something to do with the ground, you know. Anyways, that's my belief on it. I know I'm sounding like I know I sound like a broken record sometimes. I'm sorry, fellas. I do apologize.
If you had a haunting, say you had a house, you know, and there was a river close by or something like that, you know, within, say, 100 yards or whatever, wouldn't you expect the activity to be more prominent due to the fact of the running water like that?
Well, I would probably,
you know, as to say if there wasn't anything like that around.
I would probably try to document if the activity was constant. For example, if the activity was non-stop, I mean every day something else happened. Because running water, especially naturally running water, there's no way you can regulate it. So if the activity only happened at certain times, and if the activity was not in correlation to that particular locale, then I would have to say it has nothing to do with it. On the other hand, I would say that is probably where the energy is coming from. You know, so I would say it would have to be a 50-50 type thing, in my own personal opinion.
I would.
Well, I mean, because the theory is that where you have the running water, the activity will be higher, or as you said, more constant.
Right.
Mhm.
Whereas if you didn't have the running water or anything like that around, it's you will still have activity. It just won't be as much or as strong.
Right, right. There would have to be some kind of there would have to be it would have to be constant. I mean, it would have to be happening all the time. I would take a gander if there was something like that going on. In other words, if you're going to say, well, it has to be because of this stream that's here, there has to be almost nonstop activity. Now, not counting poltergeist activity, which is something completely different, but just activity. Like always cold spots, always shadow people, always apparitions, always things moving, which is not necessarily poltergeistic. A new word, by the way. Poltergeistic. Go ahead and put it down your dictionary.
No, that's actually a word.
Poltergeistic.
That is actually a word.
Okay.
Poltergeistic.
Poltergeistic.
Yep, that is actually a word.
Of or the nation of or the well, whatever. Never mind. Like I said, my mind's not that sharp now. Going on 9 o'clock. But normally I get off work around this time frame, so automatically I start shutting down. Especially on Monday nights. Go ahead. Now,
With
go ahead.
with the running water, something I would look at is not so much a river or something like that, but I would look at more of like an underground stream. And the reason being something like a smaller, more concentrated stream. And, I honestly believe that it's not so much anything really mystical or metaphysical about it in so much as it is the fact that a concentrated path of water that you would get like an underground stream, particularly if there's like a well on the property that's being fed for it or something like that I know of, I want to start looking for it because it's a conductor of energy, electricity, geomagnetic energy, electromagnetic energy, things like that, and that's what would catch my attention.
Right.
So kind of the same with where I was going with the railroad track idea.
Yeah.
Is if you look at what a railroad track really is, you were talking about getting the readings from limestone and things like that. Think of how a railroad track is made.
Right.
It's a pile of these stones that are known to be conductors of, forget anything that you've ever learned about the paranormal.
Right.
Where, completely drop that. We're talking pure geology here.
Yeah.
We know limestone, quartz, granite. Some of these particular stones have the capacity to conduct geomagnetic energy.
Right.
So, when you build a railroad track, you take a lot of these stones and you pile a mound of them together for miles and miles.
Right.
So then what do? The next step is you take these large timbers and you lay them across it, perpendicular to the pile, for miles and miles.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then of course you top it with miles of iron rail. That, of course, iron being a conductor of
Coming up on a break, you guys.
Of electromagnetic energy, electricity, anything like that. So you have this 3-layered section stretching for miles and miles. Have you created a superhighway for paranormal?
Hold that thought. We're gonna take a little break, people. probably 3 or 4 minutes, and we shall return. Don't go away. It's going to get more interesting, I'm sure.
I'm sure. It already is.
What up, y'all?
Join host Roger Bell.
Okay, everybody, we're back. Now we're back. Oops, boo-boo. Anyway, we're back and we are talking about Frank's interesting idea there. So I'm going to let you pick that back up where you was.
Right. Well, just before we took a break, we'd been talking about the stone tape theory. And we're talking about how there's so many reports of haunted houses near railroad tracks. And, there's really not just haunted houses. If you think about it, how many times over the years have you heard of sightings of apparitions near railroad tracks? Have you heard of ghost cars seen at railroad crossings? How many times have you even heard of ghost trains?
Well,
now that I've heard of, yeah.
there's a legend here in San Antonio, the railroad tracks, which I can, I'll find that on Google and I'll post that. Back in the 1950s, where a bunch of kids and a driver were actually killed. You know, looking that up, ghost tracks. Go ahead now.
Right.
They were killed by a passing train, and it was on a railroad track. Now, go ahead and get this. Sorry, guys. I'm going to post this in chat there. Add a link.
I love the movie Christine. That was excellent.
Right.
That
right. So the ghost tracks here in San Antonio. The theory holds water for me. And the reason why the theory holds water for me is for two reasons. First off, like you were saying before the break, you've got the stones, you've got the timber, you've got the iron. Then you've got the train that's going across it. So right there, you're looking at kinetic energy, which, you know, basically all that is just friction that constantly is going over that. After a while, these things become charged, you know? I mean, you're looking at basically what you're looking at is little semiconductors of electricity, almost, if you will, generators of electricity. When you have that much friction and over again on that railroad track, you know, there was times where the train would pass when I was at my aunt's house. You would literally see the hair stand up on your arms because of the static electricity. Well, what is static electricity? It's just normal, natural electrical impulses that are created by any different forms, whether it's the wind. You know, wind can do it as well. You know,
right.
You know, you can have certain elements that you put together that can cause static electricity. You can have a bad or short thing in your home that can cause static electricity. On the flip side of that, if the person has maybe, like, say, a how do you say, very sensitive or maybe an allergic reaction, if you will, to stuff like EMF, high fields, high electronic magnetic fields, could that be fueling maybe some of the paranormal activity that they're seeing as well?
Right. And you brought up a very interesting point, a very good point, about the train itself, because not only do you have all of these things that are conductors, and I'm just going to throw this out there. Okay. You know, dowsing rods. You know, me personally, and you know, no offense to anyone who does use them, I really don't think that I wouldn't rely on dowsing rods in an investigation because I can't measure them. I can't. That's just my mindset. I know some people do. However, I can say from personal experience, dowsing rods will absolutely tell you if there is water underground. They will tell you if there is a buried conductor underground. They will react to it 100%. I have used them before for that purpose, and they are very accurate for that purpose. And now, if you think of what will set off dowsing rods, and keep in mind, anyone tuning in, I'm talking about for a non-paranormal use. I'm talking about to find a buried conductor. You know, just a small piece of wire will make these two copper rods that you're holding in your hands cross. And that small of a conductor will do that. Well, what's happening is that small conductor being in the ground is causing a disturbance. Your body puts off its own biofield, if you will. You have your own EMF field around you. And you have your, of course, there's the geomagnetic field that you're always exposed to. Mm-hmm. And what happens is those rods react from the interaction of your biofield mixed with the geomagnetic field and the disturbance made by that conductor. And that's why they work with water. It's because what is water? It's an underground conductor.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about this, those railroad tracks, what are they? It's an above ground conductor. Now, if just a small piece of buried wire can create enough of a disturbance to make those rods cross and all of that, then what kind of disturbance is it making to have something on that grand of a scale?
Big Bird was asking in the chat there, has anyone gone to ground zero to see what, if any, EVPs they get?
I think there was a team that had asked to go do that, and they denied them access. And it wasn't long after that had happened. The team wanted to go. I would be surprised to see what kind of activity they would have caught after the fact. In other words, now that the building is built back up and everything else, and they're moving forward, I wonder what kind of activity goes on. I wouldn't be surprised if you get reports coming from that area. But I mean,
Absolutely.
That's a really good example of a moment in time where you had so much energy that was stored in that one little area that actually caused a lot of loss of life. You know, we have to look at, you know, World War I, World War II, the Civil War, you know, Indian Wars, the Spanish American Wars, those areas, but you never hear any type of haunting or, well, I mean, there probably is. You just don't hear any of the reports coming from that in some of those areas. Now the Civil War you do, because there's so many people investigating, like you said, you know, you had incidences where places were built on top of that, but you don't get any reports from any of the other things, you know, and I'm wondering why. Maybe because nobody's actually being affected by it, or no one has actually built anything on it, which is smart. Which is sad, you know, that we're building homes and building schools and building supermarkets on land that really should be sacred. You know, and I think that's...
Okay.
Go ahead.
Worldwide's asking, Frank, what about power lines above the ground? Do you think it'd be good for that as well for ghosts?
I think it's a possibility, but it would really be hard to say, because they put off such a strong magnetic field that it would be hard to really measure the difference. You know, of course, you know, you can measure the difference in a man-made electromagnetic field or a man-made field and a naturally occurring field. And I tend to personally believe that a ghost or a spirit would be more likely to use a naturally occurring field more than they would the man-made field. I believe that they could use a man-made energy source, but I think that they would probably find it more... I think that...
Well, no, they actually do, because they will drain batteries, which is a man-made source.
Right.
So...
Right. I believe that they probably find the... I believe they probably find the naturally occurring fields more efficient, or would probably take preference to that.
Well, and you got to figure they've been using those since, you know, time immemorial. So,
right. That,
you know,
that's like with, you know, a lot of the teams over the past few years have been using the EM pumps. or the electromagnetic pumps. And from the few results that you get, and the results on those are so hard to really measure. I've heard so many reports of the ones using the natural magnets that put off a geofield instead of an electrofield seem to have slightly better results, but still those are so sketchy that it's hard to say. Mm-hmm. But you were talking about the battlefields and stuff, and 911 and those moments in time. My mind instantly went to Gettysburg. If you look at the number of reports that come from that one battlefield, which of course pretty much encompasses just about the entire city, but there are so many reports of things like, there are people that, and we're not talking about just some person that just wandered up off the street. I've heard prominent doctors, lawyers, really credible sources of these reports talk about hearing bugles play, hearing shots fired, hearing cannons go off.
I actually had a EVP of a shot fired at Gettysburg.
Mm-hmm.
That somebody captured, and I listened to it, and it was really cool.
They're seeing soldiers, and just the manifestations fit, both audibly and visually are just, amazing. And so you can't help but wonder how much of that's going on.
I would like to ask you guys a question. Have you ever heard a story from a Civil War battlefield from a sensitive's or an empath or a psychic's point of view?
I can't say I have.
How about you, Frank?
I haven't, but I haven't been on many investigations I haven't been on any investigations to a battlefield with one. Mm-hmm. Now, I will say this, though. Mm-hmm. I have investigated a battlefield and a site that was used as a Civil War hospital. Shortly after, both were done immediately following a Civil War reenactment. Mm-hmm. And it's like that reenactment just charged the atmosphere so much that it was just unreal.
Well, my dear wife, Melissa, who is a sensitive, she has a story about something that happened to her at Manassas Battlefield in Virginia. If you would like for her to share that with you, I would like to pass the headset to her, if that would be okay.
Yes, that would be awesome.
Okay, one moment. And everybody that is now listening in, this is Will. I'm going to hand the microphone to my wife, so if you hear a little bit of interference, it's not a hiss or a ghost, it's just me passing the mic. One moment.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hello again.
Well, hi, Melissa.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you, hon?
I'm doing excellent.
Wonderful.
If I got any better, I couldn't stand it.
Well, this happened many years ago. I was actually 7. Mm-hmm. Being very small, we had gone up to visit family up in Virginia. And my adopted dad said, well, let's go do some sightseeing. So, where did he take us? He took us to Manassas Battlefield.
Oh, wow.
And so, of course, there's a big, visitor center there, and then, mm-hmm. A statue of Stonewall Jackson, and, absolutely beautiful place.
Yes.
And on this land, we went walking, and of course there's cannons on the grounds, and things like that. And there's an old white farmhouse, that's there. And so, I'm being a kid, 7 years old. So I was like, well, I'm going to walk around the back and just kind of, look, just kind of look at what I'm, look at everything. So I walk towards the back, and it's wide open, nothing but wide open field, trees to the left, trees to the right. And wide open space. I'm standing there, and it's a beautiful, sunny summer day, maybe about 80 degrees or so, or 85. And so I'm looking in both directions and just admiring the beauty of the place, So I look towards the ground, I kind of, and I'm like, all of a sudden, very gently, very softly, it looked like the ground was moving. Like how when a wave crashes on the shore and the tide, tide comes in and then it goes back out. And I looked at that and I'm like, wow, whoa, I'm 7.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. And then I felt like a gentle breeze, and it went right through me. And then all hell breaks loose. I am no longer in a peaceful place. I hear the cannons going off. I hear gunfire. I see men dropping down dead. I was right smack in the middle of this battle. I was seeing this with my eyes.
Wow.
When you're 7, it scared me. Okay, needless to say. Here I am in the midst of all this, battle, and I'm looking around and I start crying. I'm tearing up, I'm crying, because I'm seeing all these people, men just fall down dead, taking their last breath, blood everywhere. And then all of a sudden, I got it. It felt like I had actually been shot in the back of the head.
Wow.
I was able to taste the gunpowder, the metal. I tasted blood, and I fell to my knees. And my older adopted brother came running up to me. At that time, they called me Missy. They didn't call me Melissa. They called. But I hate that name. I hate the name Missy. I totally hate it. That's why it's either Melissa or Mel, but not Missy. And so he ran up to me and he goes, Missy, what's wrong? I go, I feel sick. He basically had to carry me off the battlefield and to the car. I was sweating profusely. I was pale. Just totally
wow.
When you see this, it just, oh my God. It's something I will never forget.
I can imagine that was quite traumatic being at such a young age.
Yeah, and so so my brother carries me to the car, and everybody else comes out, and we finally go back to my grandmother's, who lives in Springfield, Virginia, which isn't that far from Manassas. So went back to Grandma's. Now, my grandmother and my great-grandmother lived in the same apartment. That's just the way, they did things.
Mm-hmm.
So, I couldn't even walk. Period.
Wow.
I could not walk, and so as soon as my brother brought me in, my great-grandma. Oh, how I miss that woman, that dear woman. She is an absolutely beautiful soul. She took one look at me and she said, "Take her to my room immediately." And so my brother did. He carried me and took me to Mama Pearl's room. And so, took my shoes off. They got me under the blankets, laid me down on the bed. And so I started drifting off to sleep. Now, great-grandma, or I should say Mama Pearl, she always treated me differently than the rest of the grandkids or kids. Very patient with me, very loving. That woman never said an unkind word, never heard her raise her voice, period. So she goes, she makes sure I'm tucked in the bed, and she said, rest. She goes, rest, Melissa. And I go, okay, I'm 7. Mm-hmm. And so, right. So she gets in her room. She had her bed, her dresser, and then she had a rocking chair on the right side of the bed. And so she got in her rocking chair, and she started. I could not tell if it was a chant or if it was a prayer or what it was, but I just know that I drifted off to sleep. And I mean, I normally, when I sleep, I normally dream. There's not a night that I do not dream. Well, I drifted off, and I felt like I was floating the whole time.
Wow.
I felt like I was floating, it was just, it was nothing. I had no dream. It's just, I felt like I was floating, and it was just extremely peaceful. Well, I wake up, many hours later, I'd say about 8 hours later, I wake up. And I get out of the bed and go into the living room. And Mama Pearl, she looked at me and she goes, welcome back to the land of the living.
Huh. Well.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what you wanted to hear.
I mean, I just smiled.
I'm sure you'd.
Because I mean,
hadn't you much rather been woken up to? That was just a horrible dream.
Well, I mean, it happened, but I mean, to remember it these many years later, what happened, at the Manassas battlefield. I mean, at the time, it scared me. I mean, you're 7, you're a kid. What do you know? When you see all this stuff happening,
I agree. I imagine that was probably quite a traumatic experience that stuck with you very, very deeply for quite a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I still talk about it. I remember like it happened just yesterday, and it happened many years ago.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I've actually been to Manassas, and
oh, you have? Okay.
And that is, I spent a little time around Virginia when I was in the Army, and beautiful place. I loved being up, and some very interesting locations to investigate up there. Mm-hmm. So many. There's such a history in that area between the Native American history, the colonists, you have the Civil War, you've got Revolutionary War. I mean, just anything that you want to throw out there, it's all in that area.
Yeah. Yep.
And,
I mean that is sacred. As far as I'm concerned, that is sacred ground because so many people lost their lives there. To me, that land is sacred. It's holy. Whatever words you want to use. Mm-hmm. To me, it's sacred. It's sacred because, I mean, a battle. A battle was fought there. Many battles were fought. and many people, died at the, it was just, devastating.
Right. I always remember when I would come home here to Alabama and spend some time on leave. I always enjoyed when I would go, whether I was coming or going. I always loved the flight, because the flight from Alabama, when you're going over the mountains in Virginia, and you'd see all the old farmland and all of that, just one of the most beautiful flights that you'd ever go in, because I would usually land in Richmond, and if not Richmond, I would land over at I'd land over at the Baltimore, Maryland International. And it, either way, you had just, a magnificent view of the mountains, and you went over the Smokies, Appalachians, and it's something that you can't describe. If anyone who's never flown over that area, if you ever do, get a window seat. It's worth it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, see, when we went, we didn't we didn't ride in a plane. We actually drove up there. So it takes several days depending on how many stops you take, and but we would always drive up there. We would never take a plane. My adopted dad would not get on a airplane.
Right.
So we always traveled up there. Everybody packed a couple of suitcases. We're going to grandma's. So that's what we did. So. Beautiful area up there. I mean, it's simply beautiful. I mean,
yes,
nothing like it.
Well, and kind of a funny story, but when I was growing up, talking about flying, one of my grandmother's friends had a little Cessna airplane, a little single engine. I want to say it was a Cessna 172, if that's correct. Just a very small plane. I think it was 8 passenger. And he would take my grandmother and me and a couple of other people up about once a month, and would go up on a Sunday and would fly around the area for a couple of hours. And keep in mind, this is a very small plane, so it's a bumpy ride. You feel everything.
Yeah.
But it was very cool. I grew up doing this, all the time.
Yeah.
And I even remember close to Christmas time, we'd fly really low and fly at night, so we could see all the Christmas lights from the sky. It was very cool.
Awesome. That was awesome.
Right. And so I remember when he upgraded, and he got a twin-engine Marlin that was a 10-passenger. And that was the biggest plane I had ever been on until I joined the Army. Yeah. And the Army put me on a Lockheed Martin. I want to say it was like 100 and maybe 130 passenger. I mean, it was a commercial airplane, but for it was definitely not a 747, or not one of the large class planes by any means.
Yeah.
Still considered small. But for the scale of what I was used to, it was like essentially going from the Volkswagen Bug to a Cadillac. I'm up there first time ever in anything that big, and it's all smooth and everything, and I'm like, wow, this is nice. I'm not feeling near the turbulence in this thing as we're going over the mountains, and everybody else is in like a dead panic, like, oh my god, this thing's beating us to death. And, I'm checking it out, sitting next to the window, looking out. Wow, the wings don't flex as much on this one. So.
But that's one of my stories or my experiences that happened when I was I was 7 years old,
Wow.
and like I said, we went to Manassas Battlefield, and like I said, beautiful place. I absolutely, loved it, and I love history to begin with. So, I was thrilled to go. I was like, hey, we're gonna go do some sightseeing. We're gonna, and,
Right.
So when you were there, though, did you actually see the soldiers
yes, I saw
dying and being killed?
Yes,
or?
I, if you were standing here in the dungeon, a clear whole person, solid person, that's how I mean, it was like I was right in the middle of it.
You saw them as if you were there during the battle and they were alive.
Yes.
Now that's creepy.
I mean, it was so, like I said, it was, like I said, beautiful day, and then all of a sudden, boom, I mean, it just, like I said, it scared me, because I didn't know what the heck was going on, I mean.
Well, was you hearing the whole actual
yes.
battle sounds, the
yes.
whole, like it was taking place right then?
Yes,
or?
absolutely.
Wow.
Yep. I mean, hearing, you can hear the men who were on horses. You could hear the hood. You can feel the ground. And the horses coming. You can feel the. Everything. It was like I was right smack in the middle of it while they were alive, and then when they got, when they got shot and killed. It was like. Right, I was right in the middle of it.
Okay, there was cannon fire and stuff going on too, though,
yep.
right? So did you see like the soldiers being blown apart and stuff like that? Ugh! Wow.
Yes, sir.
That would be creepy. That would really be creepy.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't a pretty sight. Like I said, it scared me. But it's part of my story. It happened, so part of my one of my many experiences. So.
Now, have you ever investigated any Civil War battlefields or anything like that since then?
Not yet. Not yet. We are actually working on trying to find, something that's here in somewhere or the surrounding area, to investigate. We're looking for that, right now.
Right. Well, I was telling Roger and Will earlier that one of the most active investigations I ever participated on was a Civil War battlefield and a facility that was it was actually a bank during the Civil War era, but it had been commandeered and was being used as a hospital. Immediately following a Civil War enactment, we did an investigation at both places, and the reenactment, it's like it literally just charged that place, or charged both of those places.
Yeah.
It was off the charts. I just can't describe the experience. And we're actually and this is a question I'm going to ask you, because this is kind of something that I always ask people who are interested in the paranormal or have abilities. Do you are you into art or music?
I am when not investigating, I am a modern abstract artist. I paint, I have my page on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
So I have some of my artwork. I have some more canvas, so I need to get busy painting again. So, but yeah, I love I love the arts. I am a avid. Oh goodness, are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm an avid book reader. I love music. I always have since I was a kid. I've always been into the arts and music, and I mean, I can't play any instruments, but I mean, I love it. I love music.
Right.
But I love painting. That's one of the things I absolutely enjoy doing.
Right. Well, and the reason I ask that is because it seems like everyone that probably 90% of the people I know who are in the paranormal field are either into some form of art, be it painting, drawing, sketching, interior design, even cooking.
Yeah, well, see, that's another passion of mine is interior decorating. I absolutely love it. I can go into a room and mentally see the whole room completed, decorated, the colors to use, everything, the art on the walls, everything. I could see it done. So, yeah, that's another one of my passions besides the paranormal investigating, the art, and, yeah.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah.
Right, absolutely. And the reason...
So if somebody calls you up and says, I want you to decorate a room for me, you would go there, walk in, and see it
Yes.
done. Now that would be cool. I wish I could do that.
I love it.
I used to. Now I got to bring this up since you said that. But before I became disabled, I used to work at the elementary school, and of course I did the buffing of the floors, the hallways, and all that kind of stuff.
You know what? That's funny you should mention that. I used to be a teacher's aide many years ago.
When I first was hired in there, I actually cleaned some of the classrooms. And I used to think, man, I wish I could walk in there and just see it all done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, some of those rooms were a wreck.
Oh, God, no. I know. Yep.
Anyway, I had to throw that in there since you was talking about, I go in there and see it done. I picture myself walking in there and it'd be all cleaned up.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, and not only, even then, I'd mentioned the interior design and everything else, but even cooking to a level of not so much as like an everyday chore, but
I love cooking.
Right.
I love it.
Right.
I enjoy it.
Let me ask you this: in your cooking, do you see it as almost a form of expression, as like an art in itself?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Because see, and something that I'm not sure if I've ever said on the show or not is, I'm an amateur chef, and cooking is one of my big passions. But also, I've always been into art. My talent isn't as much in painting and things like that. I can draw somewhat, but I've always had a good eye for design and things. But I've found that a lot of people who investigate or have abilities are also tend to either have a large interest in music or are some way musically gifted. And like with me, I've always been able to, by ear, I play music. I play guitar, bass, piano, and several other instruments. Yeah. And have been in and out of bands since I was a teenager. And it's just very interesting, the common traits that you see, because out of a survey that they did a project several years ago called Investigating the Investigator. And it came up with numbers like 90% had one of those common traits.
Yeah.
And so it's very, you know, it's just very neat how that works.
Yes.
But we're actually working on a project now that we're wanting to document at an old theater to show the direct effects of music on paranormal activity. How you can go into a location, and I've experienced this myself. As a matter of fact, just last summer we investigated a museum that it was a private home, and it was the city owned the museum, and it was one of the families that basically founded the city had lived there and built the house.
Yes.
And they, you know, the city turned it into a museum. All of their things were there, and they take people through there. So as we're investigating the place, they had one room that was their music room, and they had this old piano that was set up in there. Well, we weren't getting very much activity. We were seeing a few shadows and a few temperature fluctuations, a couple of things like that. I sit down at this piano, and I start playing a couple of songs from right at the turn of the 19th century.
Yeah.
And or the 20th century, I mean.
Yeah.
And as I do, the activity just starts escalating, just exponentially.
Yes.
You know, as soon as I start playing, the cold spots start shifting. You start seeing the DVR system is just blowing up with shadow movement, with unexplained noises. We start getting all kinds of EVPs in the background. It was just phenomenal.
Yes.
Well, as soon as I stop, you know, when I would stop, the activity would start to die back down again. And I even asked the question, would you like for me to play some more music for you? And we got a direct response going, yes, please. So I keep playing, and the whole time that I'm playing, this activity is all ramped up. So we're doing some research to document those effects on how it can trigger both intelligent and residual activity. So I figured that's something that a lot of people in the field will find interesting because of those artistic interests.
Yes. Well, see, when I paint, when I do my artwork, I will turn the music on. You know, I mean, I won't turn it up like so loud that I'm disturbing the neighbors because we live in a apartment complex, but I'll turn it on, you know, loud enough to where, you know, I could hear it, you know, and, you know, it just, you know, I love all kinds of music. It ranges from classical music all the way to heavy metal to, I mean, you know, country, everything. I mean, there's not anything I really don't like, you know. You know,
absolutely.
And
hi, Frank. In that theater, what was it mainly used for?
It was mainly plays and music performances.
Well, I mean, you know, like, was it more of where they did like plays on stage, or just like mostly music?
It was I would say probably about 70% plays, but they also did a lot of music.
Because I was wondering if you could get a group to come in there and do like a play, and then, you know, test that theory also.
Right. That would probably do good as well.
Yeah, it would be. Absolutely.
And especially if you could get them to do something from the period.
Right.
And dress like they would have in the period.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's like when the theater that we're going to be doing was built in the 30s. So what our intention is to bring in a band that's all acoustic. Of course, kind of doubly so that we don't have anything electric to cause any extra interference. So so it doesn't trigger any false readings or anything like that. But to also play some period authentic music as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of like the swing, the jazz, things like that.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Excuse me, to that would be really cool.
Mm-hmm.
It really would be. Do you have any more questions for me?
Well, I guess probably one thing that I was curious about is since you've been investigating, do you think you've had any experience that's changed you in the paranormal, either for the worse or maybe negatively or positively, but just made like a big impact on your life?
Well, as far as investigating, I just anywhere we go, so many people, try to push themselves, whether they're investigating, a home or any place really, they try to provoke, and I've always been the type to, when you go to a place to investigate, you have to be respectful. I mean, I don't know, ever since I was a kid, since, all of this started, I always knew that, you have the living and you have the dead, and you have to tread lightly, of course, respectfully, but as far as any life-changing experience with investigating, I'm going to say no. I mean, it's not for me anyway. I mean, every person is different, but Oakwood Cemetery, where Will was talking, he's talked about it up in Austin. That place is absolutely beautiful. I absolutely loved it the whole time we would go to investigate. I mean, that was, I loved it.
Well, I can imagine so.
I mean, so many people, they think, oh, a cemetery, why would you want to go to a cemetery? For me, just like Will said earlier, I find it very peaceful. I feel more comfortable in a cemetery than I do, I feel more comfortable at a cemetery than going to the mall. I'll just put it to you that way.
Right. Well, I've always heard it's not it's the living you got to worry about.
Exactly. But that's just the way, I've always felt comfortable in a cemetery. I don't, it's calm, it's quiet, it's peaceful, it's outside, like I said, I'd rather be at the cemetery than at a mall or at a store. But that's me. That's me, because with me, if like when Will and I, like if we go out to dinner or we have to go to the grocery store, if we're in a building, and if there's so many people in where it's so crowded, I have to say, honey, please, let's go. I can't, there's too many people, and, when you get a bunch of people in a building, and when you're a empath, when you're sensitive, whoa, it's like, okay, time out, time to step out of the, let's, we'll come back later. I can't handle huge, crowds. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Well, then, it kind of reminds me of the real estate sign that I've seen where you see the house for sale, and directly across the street is is a huge cemetery, and on the real estate sign it says, "Really quiet neighbors across the street."
Yeah.
That just came to mind as you're
I
talking
saw
about
that.
But I mean, but that's me though. I mean, but, I can't do large crowds. I mean, it's like, not that I'll go into panic mode, but it's just because there's so many people in the one area, it gets, it can get overwhelming, so.
And that's something that I've always heard from so many empaths, is because that's something that a lot of people I've talked to don't seem to realize, is it's not just spirits that you pick up emotions and energies from. It's the living too, and you get in a crowd.
Exactly, and it's like, oh my! I mean, it's like all of a sudden, it's like, oh, yep. I cannot do large crowds. It's like, no, I can't do it. No. But, yep. Well, I guess I will hand the mic back over to my beloved. It was great speaking with you, gentlemen. I thank you for having me on your show. I greatly appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thanks for coming.
Oh, not a problem. Anytime y'all want me on, I'll be more than happy to, be happy to.
Awesome.
So you guys have a wonderful night, and here's Will.
Awesome.
Adieu, adieu. Parting is such sweet sorrow.
Hey, fellers, you realize that we're approaching the 3-hour, 5-minute mark right now?
I have 2 hours 57 minutes.
2 hours 57 minutes. I've got 3 hours and 4. But then again, you called me a few minutes before, prior to the situation, and everyone's saying great show. Someone had mentioned in chat that I think Frank said you get positive vibes from spirits. I think it's like anything else in our walking life. You'll approach a stranger if you feel comfortable with that person, or if you get a good vibe from them. I think that a spirit's going to be the same way. If they see that they think that they can in some way trust you, they're going to approach you, and they won't if you're out there yelling and making a mockery and doing whatever. But if you go in and you're very kind and gentle and respectful, like Melissa said, then I think that they're more apt to talk to you. Here's a question I got for you, gentlemen. What do you think about return trips? And what I mean by that is, like, investigating a place, let's say a certain amount of time frame. Do you think after a while that the spirits will begin to trust and maybe become more responsive? And on the flip side of that, do you think there's a danger going back to places more than once in a time?
It depends on what kind of entities you're dealing with at the place you're talking about. If you were dealing with angry spirits, so to speak, you keep going back, you're just going to tick them off more. If they're, how would you say, laid back, just there because they're there, they might get more at ease with you, and they may actually, communicate with you a little more than they did in the beginning. So, yeah, I think it depends on what type of entity you're dealing with.
Wow.
My opinion.
No,
everybody's got one.
I agree. And I think that once you're dealing with an angry spirit, there's no calming that person down. Mainly because they're stuck in that state, for whatever reason. either it's resentful or that's the nature in which they passed. And there was always there was a theory that I had that when a ghost or when a person dies, they're stuck in the moment, the very second in time that they actually passed away. Like, for example, it's always going to be 1999 for that spirit. It's always going to be 1865 for that spirit. It's always going to be 2015 for that, because they're stuck.
Right.
And that particular time, that's when their time ended. Now, as far as the spirit itself, it's only going to know what happened up until that time frame and before. It's not going to see what actually happens in the future. Although some are more advanced to where they will be able to see and be able to manipulate things after a certain amount of time frame once they learn how to deal with their abilities that they have. We all have them. Everybody has some kind of sixth sense. It doesn't matter if you're a musician, you know what's going to work good for a crowd. If you're a comedian, you know how to work a crowd. Maybe it is repetition and you know what's going on. Maybe it's a sixth sense. I think everybody has one. I just think some people were able to pick up on more things paranormal than maybe other people are. Like we were saying, some people has a better knack at videos. Some people have a better knack at EVP. Some people have a better knack at other things. So it's going to be one of those. Well, I know my wife enjoyed talking to you guys, and I know she enjoys telling her story too.
Absolutely, and we definitely enjoyed talking with her. It's fascinating, especially hearing the perspective of what she experienced. How you don't hear that very often. You hear people talk about what they've heard, what they've seen in pictures.
Right.
And
I love the battleground part. That was awesome.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I really don't take too many tools with me when we investigate, because I don't really need to. She'll tell me if there's something there or not. And so it's more of a matter of, proving it to science, I guess, if you will, and trying to maybe disprove what the people are trying to go with. If there's something there, there's something there if she can pick up on it, or if I can pick up on it. That's one knack that both of us have, is that we can walk into a place. Maybe for me, it's just a comfortable feeling. But for her, it's more of a heightened sense of, for her, it's just as easy as walking outside and telling it if it's hot or cold. That's how sensitive she is to it. And so, I don't really rely on a lot of, fancy gadgets. If she tells me that there's something there, we try to find it and we try to talk to it and try to capture evidence of it. And that's basically our way of investigating. That's why I say we're a perfect team. We work well together. We're the yin and yang. I've always told people she's my conscience, and it's God's honest truth, she is. Now we're going to talk about. Never mind. All right, so yes, they did. They enjoyed it very much, baby. And everybody in chat enjoyed it as well. Didn't you? No, it's fine. But yeah, it was. This has been a really interesting show. I like this concept of Paranormal Roundtable because you can let your hair down. In my case, I don't have much, but you can let your hair.
Are either of you two paying attention to anything in the chat room there? to mine?
Yeah, I've been.
I am a little bit. I was reading because while Melissa was talking, I did an EVP session. Now, the reason why I did that is because I know that she will draw energy around her. And case in point, when we did the Haunted Salem show last Friday, the first part was kind of boring EVP-wise. The second part was like static electricity in here. and that's where we got most of our captures. And I haven't really been able to completely analyze them, but there was at least 5 or 6 different things that I caught that just kind of stood out. Now, I'll go through them and try to, see if they're anything more than just maybe ambient background noise. But yeah, there was a couple things that just kind of stood out. That's what I was doing, because I wanted to make sure at least I did one tonight and got that done. For me, it's practice, but at the same time frame, I feel that when you're communicating like this, it is a really big feeling of mine when you're talking about things of the paranormal, not so much about certain locations, but there's a connection where they know you're talking about them. Like, for example, I've always said that before Melissa and I are either we go to an investigation because it's someplace we want to go, or maybe called into an investigation because maybe something was there, like the woods investigation we did behind our apartment when we lived in Austin. It's one of those things where we're contacted way before we even go out by some entity or form of entity of some kind at that particular location. Case in point, Melissa had a dream not long ago about a man that came and talked to her, and we're planning looking at this one place we want to investigate downtown. It's an old pub. We just haven't had the honestly, we just haven't had the funds to actually go or time to take off to go and do it yet, But it's going to be fun when we get a chance to. It's going to be really cool. A couple other places we're looking at as well. I've been looking at some ghost towns that I want to go look at and hit up. Just to get out there and, hone our skill. And go out there and try to get some more information so we can build it up for our theories and our scientific aspect of it. That's what we're trying to do. Capture something on some kind of medium so we can say, here's the proof. Look at it. Here with your own eyes. So that's what we're doing.
Absolutely. Jenny in the chat room, of course, she is a medium. And she was getting some interesting responses. Come to find out, she was having a couple of visitors from a case that I was on a couple of months ago.
See? I believe that.
And
I believe that very, very strongly.
And she's, not only... And I mean the validation is there. I mean, some of the things that we're talking about, there's no way that she would have known the details.
Mm-mm.
And I mean, she's sitting here talking about it, and that's just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But what she's telling me, if you read the conversation, she's talking about how these spirits are talking about how what we did on that case helped them. So that's something that is amazing, because not only were we able to help the client there find peace in her home, because the client, she was scared to be in her house. And shortly afterward, she reported that for the first time that she had felt like she was there alone.
Mm-hmm.
And
amazing.
So not only were we able to help the client, but we're able to help the spirits there as well. And that is, that's just an amazing feeling.
It is. Because, I mean, there has to be the complete circle.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by the complete circle, you've got to help the living and you also have to help the dead. There's 2 parts to that. The dead has to realize that whether they go on and move on to their reward, or whether they move on somewhere else and maybe detach themselves from this person, and notice I said person, or this location, they've got to take that next step. in life. And your life is all about progression. It's not about regression or degression. It's about progression. And that doesn't change when you pass. And I think that's what we're here for. We are here to help the living cope with a situation, to understand, look, you're not crazy, but at the same time frame, put yourself in their shoes. And then help the dead realize, look, yes, this may have been your location, or yes, you may have been attached to this individual before, this object before. Now you have to move forward. Now you have to go on.
Right.
And I don't, that's where, excuse me, that's where I have a problem with some of these locations selling tickets to people to go in and investigate these things, because you are not helping the situation. If anything, you're angering the spirits. And we were talking about that on our last show on the Haunted Salem show, the Lizzie Borden. You're not helping, you're hurting. You're exploiting this situation for people that are in dire needs of help when you do that. So when Melissa and I go on investigation, we'll do maybe 3 days of solid nothing but, and not consecutive. It may be spread over a week, maybe spread over a month, right? But we'll do 3 days of solid investigation. On the 4th day, we won't take any equipment. We'll walk the entire area and we'll say, if there's anybody that wants to communicate with us, do so. If there's anybody that wants to move forward, if anybody needs help going to the light, we're here to help you. And so that's exactly what we do. And she'll communicate with them one-on-one, and she'll help them move on. Now, we did that at Oakwood Cemetery one time and was really attacked by some really negative forces. And so you've got to be very careful in that aspect of it. Sometimes they don't want to leave. Sometimes they're just stuck there. And then sometimes there's things that are keeping them there for a reason, because they're feeding off of their energy, which, believe it or not, there are spirits like that. But anyways, it's all about helping people, and that's what it boils down to. In our case, it's more answers for us, because again, there was just so many things that we were left in the dark about, because no one ever talked about it. Again, it was taboo for a lot of places, for a lot of people. And you really can't find any answers from the church. If you went and asked them, why is my house haunted? They're going to tell you, well, maybe you need to cast the demons out. You know what? It might not be a demon. Not everything that is under a rock is a snake. Okay? And so you've got to look at it from that aspect of it.
Right. Absolutely.
So 3 minutes and 3 hours, and 19 minutes. We're really going on the marathon again, guys. A total of almost 9 hours or so. We really should. We really should call this, instead of calling it Paranormal Roundtable, we should call it the 3-hour festival. Is what it should be called.
Right.
But it's amazing, because when you start talking this aspect of it, every time you start talking about something about the paranormal, some other aspect comes up, like nudist colony, and it's see, I told you I wasn't going to mention anything out loud, but it's this way that actually it works that way, and it's one of those things. Okay. I don't know how much. Are we on a time limit? Do we have to get off, or are we okay for another 30 minutes? Because I've got a question for everybody.
Well, I have 3:14. We're good until the half-hour mark, so we've got about a little over 15 minutes.
Okay. I know I'm going to open up a can of worms here, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. Animal spirits, dogs, cats. Horses, bats, chihuahuas. What have you guys ever encountered anything like that? And do you think it's intelligent or residual?
Animal spirits. That's a good question.
I tend to think that most of the reports that I've seen tend to be residual, but But they're
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't think I've ever seen where they actually interacted with anybody.
but there have been there have been a couple that I've seen that seem to show some intelligent signs. So I wouldn't say that they're all residual.
Right. Like being there for the owner or ex-owner when they needed the most, you know, or showing up when just most unopportune time, or you think about that particular animal and you either hear their bark or their woof or their meow or something, and you see that particular creature or spirit manifest itself. We have a cat here in our home, and sometimes you can feel it jump on the bed. And I know it's not the boys because they sleep in the living room. And sometimes you feel something rub up against your leg. And again, I know it's not the boys because they're standing right in front of me, most of the time begging for a treat. And they have been for the past 15 minutes, but yet you feel that. Duke will chase something like he is now. You know, he's going after something in the room here. He'll chase something. Will corner something and bark at it, and we don't see anything, but obviously he does. So there's something in the house. You know, we don't feel alarmed by it, which is why we haven't cast it out yet, or we haven't, I guess you could say, dealt with it in a harsh manner. But at the same time frame, it's, you know, I do believe that they can exist, but maybe on a different plane. Maybe not so much as intelligent as what we would think our intelligence are, but more of kind of like a mixture of both, if you will.
Right. And it definitely, you know, it's always a strange occurrence too, because there's so many different religious beliefs and so many different conflicting views about animal spirits, but it's definitely something that you can't ignore, because they're, you know, it not only brings in the question of just, you know, Rover that died a couple months ago because he ran out in front of the truck, but, you know, think about this. What about the cases where you hear of an entire stagecoach with driver and horses and the whole, you know, there you have a vehicle, animals, and a human apparition all together. And, you know, that's something to think about too. How does that work?
Yeah.
You know, or for that matter, phantom vehicles.
Right. Right. That's why my theory of the soul, which we all know is, versus this energy that we possess. The ghost is not the soul of a person. That doesn't belong to us. It never did. What does belong to us is our body. What we use, what we have every day. You pick something up, I can pick this recorder up and hold it in my hands. That's my ability. What we have to possess that is us is not. That doesn't belong to us. We're loaned that, if you will. If you believe that way. Okay? So the energy that we have that's constantly being recorded is within ourselves. Now, how do you say that of vehicles and stuff like that? Well, it's that imprint in the area. You know, I would be almost willing to believe that that energy was recorded in a very high quartz and limestone location. And if you look at it, most is in the south, right? So that would be my say that it's residual. That is, and what that is basically is a recording happening over and over again. But a good example of an animal haunting is the black cat or the black and white cat that haunts the White House. Every time a president or a dignitary dies, this cat is seen. For example, when John F. Kennedy passed, the cat was seen in the Oval Office. They didn't have any cats in the Oval Office because he was allergic to them. When Lincoln passed, the cat was seen there in and around the casket. When I think Ronald Reagan passed, the cat was seen in the Rose Garden. I'm about to say the Olive Garden. In the Rose Garden there at the White House. So that's a good example of that. But again, you're probably looking at something more residual than you are anything else. Although there are reports of intelligent ones. So I guess you can only assume that they're both, you know. It's an amazing field, and I think we're just really scratching the surface of it. So, you know, like right. I quote the late George Burns, who said there are no professionals, only amateurs who make money, and that's the bottom line. You know, there's no professionals in this business. We're all amateurs. We're all learning, and I don't think anybody has a market on anything. That's why. I never say that our theories are a fact, because I can't. They're only theories, you know, that we came up with. And I've got so much more, and I wish we had so much more time. You know, I tell you what, guys, how about...
Well, hey, we can always have you back again on another show, and you can go into further.
Well, how about we
detail.
do this? Because March is, I've got February covered. I've got parts of March covered. How about I bring you guys on my show on March the 27th? How does that sound to you, Frank?
That sounds great.
All right, cool. So we're set then.
I will mark that on my calendar. What
Friday?
Night is that
it's
now?
Friday night.
Okay. Hold on. Okay, Friday night.
10 p.m. Central. On Dead Creek Radio Live.
Awesome. Okay, I will mark that on my
calendar. We'll have the Hillbilly Ghost Hunters Part 3. Yeah, if we did a weekend show, we ought to do. We ought to do a weekend show called the Hillbilly Ghost Hunters Part. We really should, and maybe make it like a parody where we talk about everything from phantom noises and smells, which, you know, you have to debunk on chilly night around my house. But at any rate.
Okay, so now that you brought that up, I gotta ask: has anybody ever smelled a ghost fart before?
Only when I had ghost chilies. That's about it. Other than that, no. I have not. But you know, yeah, exactly. Tweet, Big Bird. That was perfect timing, Big Bird. It was. I'm not going to say so much a ghost fart as much as I would love to say that the third grader in me would love to say, yes, I've heard a ghost fart. I have, only thing that I felt was a dash of warm air. It was a blast of warm air that just kind of hit out of nowhere. And it wasn't on an investigation. It was when I was in middle school. And supposedly in this area, some kid was hit by a car. And I didn't... I knew about it, but that's when the warm air hit me. It just kind of like a blast of air. But that doesn't really count as a ghost fart. Although that would be cool to, you know, that maybe that's what I'm going to do on my next investigation. I'll ask the ghost if it can fart for me. Now, guys,
so is that sulfur smell that's reported on investigation sometimes?
I guess so. The bad.
Hey, now why is it when we start getting silly toward the end of a show? What was it? What does
because
that mean?
You know what? Because we've done all the work, and this is Well, I'm serious. I always like to end my shows on a positive note. You talk about death. You talk about death and destruction for the entire 3 hours. Last night was 5 hours and 25 minutes, and then you bring it at the end. You end on a high note. And really, honestly, it helps people to see, hey, what, these guys aren't always serious. They can have a fun side too.
I won't even bring up what we were talking about last night, though, toward the end.
Man. If you do, you're going to open up a whole nother can of worms. And the last,
you notice that's why I've been kind of quiet. I've been over here in the good corner.
Yes, I know.
How that saying goes, let sleeping dogs
that's
lie.
That's exactly, Frank, why you hadn't brought up nudist colonies. See what you made me do, Roger? Jeez.
Right.
See, you did
I haven't mentioned nudist colonies. I haven't mentioned my orb pics on MySpace. I haven't.
Your orb pics on MySpace. Or your space or our space or whatever the case might be.
Right. I've been over here.
Good.
And Frank didn't mention about delivering something to the nudist colony.
Right. Investigation is a nudist colony, right? Yeah.
Field trips.
Which would be weird. How in God's name are you going to be able to take a picture of that and say, yes, ma'am, this is abnormal, but it's not paranormal? I mean, come on.
Right. But there goes that classification.
Right.
Frank won't admit it, but when he was told,
whatever you want, I don't care.
He won't admit it, but when he was told that he was delivering to a nudist colony, he got all excited. And then when he got out there and found out that it was a senior citizen nudist colony,
I got suckered in is what I got.
I got suckered in, right? Oh my God. Look, my question is, when you got after you did that, did you go home and call your grandma and tell you love her? No, don't answer that question. Oh God! You see, folks, this is how it works. You get towards the end of the show and you get like paradrunk. I mean, you just really get, really happy about doing everything. And right now, the people who thought we were credible scientists are going, my God, these guys are weird. It's like,
they're really a bunch of nuts. They're not investigators. They're
right. Yeah. These guys, they don't need an EVP recorder. They need a straitjacket is what they need. That's right.
Okay, I want to get this in here while we're still abroad. We got about 2 minutes and some odd seconds. I want to thank everybody that participated in the chat room tonight. You guys were awesome, and girls. And I want to thank William for coming on with us again. And sorry we lost Donald. It would have gotten probably really more interesting if we'd had everybody here. But But anyway, at any rate, I wanted to make sure that I thank everybody, and I appreciate you guys coming and all the questions in the chat. That was great. This has actually been a debut, but the actual show was set to start March 2nd, so we will have Cheryl Lynn Carter is a guest, and I think it's going to be really interesting. She has some good stories to tell.
It'll be amazing. Let me just get a plug real quick, if you don't mind. Tune in this Friday night, Dead Creek Radio. We're going to have Brian Bethel. We're going to be talking about the Rake. We're going to be talking about the Jersey Devil, the Slender Man, and all other kinds of myths and legends this Friday night. It's going to be cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Also, my co-host, Mr. Frank Lee here, has his show on tomorrow night. And we want to make sure y'all all check in.
It's actually going to be a great show. I'm going to have a couple of our hosts from the network. I'm going to have Kevin Malik and Jennifer Selsey, which, Jen's in the chat right now. And, Kevin is a paranormal historian, and Jen is a physical and psychic medium, and they both great paranormal researchers, but they cover it all, from lake monsters to ghosts to aliens, extraterrestrials, any kind of spectrum of the paranormal, so it's going to be a great show. It's not just going to be another ghost show.
No, they can do everything. I mean, I was on their show Friday night, and we did conspiracy theories. So yeah, those guys are awesome, most definitely.
I'm excited.
It's going to be a great show. Yeah. Now, what time is it tomorrow night?
Okay.
It's going to be 8 p.m. Central Time or 9 Eastern.
Yeah. Okay, I'll probably catch the latter part of it because I don't get home till like 9:15. But I will tune in tomorrow night.
With that being said, I'm going to close this down because we are past the 3:30 mark now.
We are most definitely.
Tune in on March 2nd to catch the next episode of HalfPastDead Paranormal Roundtable with Frank Lee and myself. And we will see you then, or tomorrow night, or Friday night, or whichever show you end up on.
God bless you guys. Listen, it's been a pleasure.
Night, everybody.
An honor being with you guys. Good night.
Join host Roger Bell and the teacher Frank Lee on the HalfPastDead Paranormal Roundtable on the Paranormal King Radio Network every Monday night at this same time for another haunted evening.